again, friends. Ooh. Hello again, friends, and you are our friends, and welcome back to another holiday season episode of Jim Cornette's Drive Thru. I'm screaming again. I'm your host, the great Brian Last. Yes, I am screaming.
Yes, you are.
We got a big show today. Saturday night's main event, the retirement of John Cena. We're going to hear what the fans thought about that. We're going to hear what Jim Cornette thought about that. And speaking of which, here he is, the leader of the cult of Cornette, Mr. Jim Cornette.
Well, Brian, I was going to say that, on a day like this, when there's all kinds of bad news in the world, what the people need is a good up-tempo, peppy, groovy kind of fucking fun music to just make them frolic a little bit and just let them wave their arms in the air and wave them like they just don't care. And then you played that.
Hey.
There was some element of, I just don't care in there, but I'm not sure it fit the other.
I thought it was jolly and professional. I don't know what your problem is.
There was a touch of jolliness in there, but professional what? Professional disemboweling of a large rodent.
That's kind of my sound. I don't know why you're criticizing
the disemboweled rodents. That's another punk band we need to trademark.
All right. Well, like I said before, we have a lot to get to. And right here at the top of the show, Jim, I would like to wish Happy Hanukkah to all my fellow Jewish Cult of Cornette members all throughout the land, everyone listening to this. Hope everyone is having a wonderful Hanukkah, Christmas around the corner. It's the holiday season, lots of things happening. And I also want to send my best wishes, my love and light, to everyone in Australia after the horrific tragedy that happened just the other day as we are recording, where during a Hanukkah celebration there was a anti-Semitic attack, and I think as we are recording 15 people have died. It's a tragedy, and just want to send my best wishes to everyone in Australia right now.
I have been it's been hectic with trying to get some more packages out for Christmas and etc. But I've seen some highlights, but have not sat down and watched an entire piece, where they said step by step exactly what occurred on this thing. But I've seen the clip where apparently this guy with the fucking 6-foot-long automatic rifle or whatever is just firing away, and some guy that was ducked down, hiding behind his car, just ran out and tackled the fuck out of him and took the gun away from him. And it was pointing it at him, and I'm like, you know what? From what I'd seen so far, I'd go ahead and shoot him at least once because he might have a pistol in his back pocket, right? But then there were two of them, and it was a father and a son, and they had these guns, which in Australia, they have strict rules. So, and I know some asshole's going to say, oh, see, it happens everywhere. It hadn't happened in Australia to this extent, like 30 years, and over here it's Tuesday. But, so people tackled this one guy and they shot one and caught the other one, I guess, right? But again, I blame the internet because there were always mentally unfit lunatics of various fringes, but they weren't all able to talk to each other. And then the people who get into that kind of thing weren't able to find weak-minded, gullible people to fucking rally up with them. They were just, the people at the local store would kind of turn away and not look at them when they passed by. And this whole fucking thing is just spread exponentially, and it's ridiculous.
Well, obviously in this case it was in the house. It was a father and son, so obviously the son was probably brought up with anti-Semitism.
I don't know if we're talking about a mastermind and a second in command here, or they've obviously been radicalized by some extent of something to go to this extent. It's insane. And again, nuts have been made normal in this country by our president and around the world by every wacko with a grievance about religion or ethnicity or whatever the fuck. And they just say, oh yeah, we'll do this too.
Yep.
Anyway.
And again, these were just Jewish people. For the record, these were Jewish people celebrating Hanukkah on a beach. This wasn't a pro-Israel rally. This wasn't anything like that. These were just Jewish people in Australia. So for everyone who wants to question the anti-Semitic nature of it, that's exactly what it was. It wasn't about it wasn't about their support of Israel. It was about their being Jewish. And I think it's important to note that.
Again, that's the same thing as, a church picnic in Alabama or a fucking meeting of this persuasion of people in fucking Canada or whatever the fuck. It's some nut that, but in this country, again, unfortunately, because we don't know what the mass shooting at Brown University was over yet, because that happened at approximately the same time frame.
They don't even have the suspect yet, right? They're still a manhunt.
They're still looking for this fucking guy shot at and or hit a number of people. But you can't expect, there's nuts everywhere, and the internet has connected them. And this country is where they can all get guns. And I know somebody's going to say, well, Australia, but no, however they obtained these things, and I don't know the details yet, they've got pretty stringent regulations over there. And when they've had a shooting in the past, I can't call the name of the place, but they did something about it. And, but here it's like, oh, here, please take more. We've got to realize this is why you can't have nice things. Because people cannot be trusted with this shit and this level of shit, which has never before been invented and available to the public. It's like giving people goddamn truckloads of napalm. Where the fuck do you draw the line?
And
Anyway.
Of course, our sympathies to anyone affected by the ongoing situation, at least as far as manhunt is concerned at Brown University. That's another tragedy. Well, Jim, another one I want to talk about here is the horrific news suddenly that came out last night as we are recording, the murder of Rob Reiner and his wife. And let's talk about it for a little bit, because I'm fairly sure the work of Rob Reiner on television or in film is something you've enjoyed, and I know I have. So why don't we talk a little bit about Rob Reiner?
Well, you were mentioning when we talked earlier, All in the Family. I watched All in the Family from the first season on broadcast television in real time, as the kids say. And the fucking Rob Reiner, Carol O'Connor, Archie Bunker, Mike Stivic interaction was usually the and poor Edith, but that was usually the best, the funniest part of the show. And that was what everybody was. They were doing things and talking about things on television that had not been done and talked about at that point, when all the sitcoms were, The Adventures of Ozzie and Harriet. And so there was also news articles, and there was on the evening news occasionally when, something would happen. It was outrageous, and they covered all the topics, abortion and various hot button issues. And Sammy Davis Jr. kissed Archie Bunker. And that was a big fucking deal.
And it was the number one show in the country that whole time. All of that was happening.
Oh my God. It started as a mid-season replacement in like January, as I recall. And I think by the summer or the next fall, it was just slaughtering everything. And then that began the Saturday night Murderers Row of the network, where all of Mary Tyler Moore and All of the Family, and oh my God, I used to be able to call it, but like they just slaughtered the competition on Saturday night, which was a big TV night back in those days. And,
that's one of the things that's crazy about the news getting out last night. And at first, there was no confirmation who it was, but people quickly put two and two together when the ages of the people in Rob Reiner's house got out. But on MeTV on Sunday nights, it's a regular thing I do every Sunday night after the kids go upstairs. I'll watch a little bit of All in the Family because it's on for like a 2-hour block every Sunday night. And it holds up. It's brilliant. There are still not too many shows on TV talking about the things they were talking about on that show.
Yeah.
And addressing them and kind of putting a human spin on it in a crazy way. And the episode that was on last night was Mike Stivic, and Beverly LaSalle, who was a recurring character like one time every season for 3 seasons straight, a drag queen, I guess is the word we would use now. So you get the funny interplay with the drag artist and Archie Bunker. Well, on this episode, Beverly LaSalle and Mike are walking to, I think, the subway, and they get mugged. And Beverly dies, and Edith can't handle it, and Mike is consoling her. And I'm watching all this, and I'm like, this is an amazing thing this was on TV in the mid-'70s. The way it was done, it was beautiful, and he's so good in that role. And as soon as I turned that off at 9, they went to Good Times, but after John Ames left, so I kind of didn't want to see it. That's when I saw the news about Rob Reiner, and again, stunning. He, beyond his film work, obviously, whether you agreed with his politics or not, he was always out there. You know, he wasn't like someone who ever disappeared. Hey, whatever happened to that Rob Reiner? He's been a steady presence in the culture for almost 60 years.
Well, the string of movies that he's directed or been responsible for, the books, the various, not only political viewpoints, but he's done a lot for, what's the word I'm searching for? Not human rights, but underprivileged people in society, that type of thing, to advance people's overall quality of life. And, so he stayed constant. And besides that, Carl Reiner just died like
a few years ago, right?
Well, a few years ago. He was 90-something.
Yeah.
And he had been huge in the culture and on television since your show of shows in the 50s with Sid Caesar, one of the writers. And he did some of the first comedy albums that Mel Brooks did.
That's right.
With the 2,000-year-old man. And he invented the Dick Van Dyke Show for himself, but then, they recast it and it became a thing, but he was Alan Brady and his son. So literally there was only a 5-year gap between the time that Reiners were on television on a regular basis from the dawn of television until the 80s. And I was just going to say then Rob Reiner's career with these mega blockbuster movies exceeded Carl Reiner's.
I just thought about it when you brought up Carl Reiner and Mel Brooks. Without Rob Reiner, there's a chance. I know Bob Einstein did stuff, but there's a chance we never find out about Albert Brooks because he was discovered as a teenager by Carl Reiner and Mel Brooks, who thought he was the funniest kid. He was Rob Reiner's friend who would come to the house with him.
That's right.
And that's how Albert Brooks got going, was the reputation that these guys, the funniest guys, think he's the funniest guy and he's a kid. And he did some incredible stuff for years, and that comes out of Rob Reiner's relationship with him. And he was on the Smothers Brothers, at least as a writer, which again was a revolutionary show comedy-wise for its time. And then All in the Family, and I can't imagine anyone else in that role. Perfect in the role of Meathead, Mike Stivic. Perfect.
But and then, of course, the problem is it apparently, and I was just reading up right before we hopped on this thing. I was just trying to read one of these updated reports. Their son murdered him is what happened, going to the headline, and then we'll break it down from there. But apparently this kid, he's 40 or whatever years old, has been on not just a regular drug addict, but like the plethora, the cornucopia of any kind of drugs that you can be taking and drinking. And he's been in rehab like 15 or 20 times.
Yeah.
Literally more than 15 times. And, the heroin or this or that or whatever the fuck. And they I hate to laugh, but this is so bizarre. They were at Conan O'Brien's Christmas party, and the kid was arguing with Rob Reiner. And that's been through courtesy of TMZ. But then, so apparently in their home, Rob Reiner and his wife, this kid comes in, does whatever, and stabs them both to death. And they've got him at least, but what in the
you didn't see the police press conference last night, the LAPD around midnight on
No, I turned on to this. Last night was Saturday night, and Grandpa Corny watches as much Svengoolie as he can. Or no, I'm sorry, that last night was Sunday. I was still watching Svengoolie, but on the DVR. But I went to sleep, and I woke up this morning and turned on Twitter is what the problem was. And then I saw I had to read it twice. I was like, wait, what? Murder, what?
No, in real time, it was kind of weird because, again, it was 2 bodies found at a house owned by Rob Reiner was the original story. And then it was the ages, and people realized that's the age of Rob Reiner and his wife. And stuff started coming out. People magazine, jumped on it because I saw it going around that it was the son. They immediately went there. So after all this is going around, they have finally around midnight, 6 hours after the discovery of their bodies, they have this press conference, and they basically confirmed there's a house. They wouldn't say who was in it. They said they didn't even have search warrants yet. 6 hours after the discovery, they didn't have search warrants, so they couldn't say anything. They couldn't go in there. There's not a suspect right now. But there's also no, they wouldn't say if anyone should be afraid. I mean, is there a killer on the loose? They wouldn't say anything. And now we hear that they do have the son in custody, and it sounds like immediately the family was pointing the fingers at it's likely our troubled brother or whatever.
Brother, yes, because one of the daughters from one of the reports I read, or a daughter, however many children they had, point is, said, no, it's our brother. You need to get him. He's dangerous, type of thing. Find him. So they found him. But that's terrible.
So sad.
And again, everything that we've seen on television or in the movies or in entertainment or whatever, there's an offshoot of just he and his father's incredible, is what I was going to say.
When you think of his movies, too, it's such an amazing catalog of stuff he worked on, from Spinal Tap, which is nothing like Stand By Me, which apparently Stephen King says was the best movie version of one of his books ever done. Misery, which was actually a badass movie, the comeback of James Caan in that movie. Of course, When Harry Met Sally, I don't know. I'm a man. I don't know. I didn't really watch it all the way through, to be honest with you. I got to give that one a chance now. But A Few Good Men.
They're all different. They're all different. Everything. He didn't even have this is my thing, I got to stick to it. There's no similarities in most of those fucking movies.
Just an amazing body of work. And again, that's him leaving acting for the most part. He still did stuff. He was still in stuff, especially after his directing career got going. Every now and then you'd see him in something, but he was a Emmy award-winning actor, and he just started directing. And Spinal Tap was an amazing, his first theatrical film. Just an amazing film to run out of the gate with. I mean, that's a risk, that movie. But sad news, Rob Reiner, and again, very talented guy. If anyone's not watched All in the Family, I encourage you to watch it. In these times especially, I think it's an important show to watch. But tragic news. And
Brian, I'll go ahead and say it. There can be one silver lining in this whole thing. I think that you will have to agree that if Rob Reiner had the choice, if they said, because he's 78 years old, they said, Rob, if you can do something important for humanity, will you make the ultimate sacrifice? And he found out that he could, and so he did, in effect, because our lunatic president, who shames us before the world every day, couldn't even stay the fuck out of this, much less be a human being. And with what he tweeted about, it's all over the place. There are recognized people of every stripe and side and color of political affiliation saying, what the fuck is the matter with you? To Schittler for cutting a promo on a guy that just got murdered. Just because Rob Reiner was another one of the many people that told the truth about his just lying ass. And this has showed everybody what the fuck that this guy really thinks it will say about you if you ever have disagreed with him. But because he's supposed to be a representative of the United States of America and have some kind of not even empathy or sympathy, but just dignity, just some fucking dignity, because you're a pig. You pig, you wallow in a fucking sewer of shit. But he can't have just any dignity as in his job representing us around the fucking world. And once he's tweeted this, as I said, everybody of every race, creed, color, and national origin, even people on his side, are recognizing finally that there's something the fucking matter with him. And if criminality and lying and all the other fine attributes that he's shown before weren't enough, when he puts the boots to Rob Reiner and his poor wife right after they've been murdered by their crazy son on drugs. Brian, do you think I should? Should I read this for everybody so we can hear what the President of the United States has to say about people's murders? It's on whatever the fuck, where his face is all striped with red, white, and blue. It ought to be prison bars, but nevertheless, he said a very sad thing happened last night in Hollywood. Rob Reiner, a tortured and struggling but once very talented movie director and comedy star, has passed away together with his wife, Michelle, reportedly due to the anger he caused others through his massive, unyielding, and incurable affliction with a mind-crippling disease known as Trump derangement syndrome, sometimes referred to as TDS. He was known to have driven people crazy, in capitals, by the way, with his raging obsession of President Donald J. Trump, with his obvious paranoia reaching new heights as the Trump administration surpassed all goals and expectations of greatness, and with the golden age of America upon us perhaps like never before. May Rob and Michelle rest in peace. What? Why is someone not going down the hall to his room and taking him into some kind of custody? He's making decisions. For fuck's sake, what more do people need to see and hear?
Yeah, that's shameful. Maybe he wanted to be the Princess Bride. I don't know. But, again, Rob Reiner, whether you agreed with the politics or not, and there's plenty of people who did not, and I saw plenty of those people out there saying what a great guy he was if they knew him personally or what a big fan they were of his work. For him to do this is pretty disgraceful.
And well, again, it's Tuesday again or whatever, so time for dipshit to open his mouth and let the fucking effluvia flow. But speaking of which, why don't we open our mouths and let some effluvia flow, Brian?
That sounds like a good idea, and of course, there was once a bountiful amount of effluvia at Cornette's Collectibles, but this holiday season, a lot of it's out the door. Jim, let's talk about the effluvia inflicting you.
The effluvia inflicting me is flying out the doors here. Hey, we caught up Hotchkiss Featherbottom on the morning of December 15th, picked up every order that has been orderfied through December the 11th, which has been signed and processed for the people. And that's the last time you ain't gonna get it at before Christmas after this week, folks. The post office says that, but he's doing another pickup next week for those stragglers that would like to have everything through December 19 or so by New Year's week. And the products sell themselves, and I'm too tired to sell anymore. I'm a little frazzled after the wonderful response from all of you gorgeous, sexy customers out there after the last 8 weeks or so. Cornette's Collectibles at JimCornette.com.
Give Jim carpal tunnel at JimCornette.com.
I've actually, for a shoot, got tendonitis because of the goddamn fucking limb lopper on my pole saw that I was using this summer. And I pulled too hard, and it flared up it's flaring up. It's my on and off tendonitis, Brian. I got it from Ron Wright. And it's goddamn, it affects my like gripping and fucking writing and mousing. When I'm mousing, it hurts.
Do you ever have any issues with, like, if you were at an autograph show and you signed a bunch of autographs, your hand giving out?
No, one day ain't gonna. Well, I mean, it's not like I'm Cena there with the one giant J and a squiggle C, and he's out the door on that signature. I'm trying to make mine legible, but unless it was like a couple of thousand things that I've signed, a time or two at once, you have to take breaks. But normally, just a regular fan fest. I think I'm not putting the iron claw on anybody, so not that big of a hardship. Oh, I tell you, it was so hard my hand, I couldn't write anymore.
Once again, hurt Jim's hand, JimCornette.com. But Jim,
ooh, or that sounds like some kind of German website. HurtJim'sHand.com. What do they do to his fucking toes?
Jim, on the topic of fanfare, there was a lot of anticipation, not just in the recent weeks, but I guess you could say over the last year, for Saturday night's main event in Washington, D.C., John Cena's final match, his last match. There were rumors, maybe the president will be there. Maybe Vince McMahon will be there. And coming out of the event, you have to say, will they ever be there again? That's the question some have been asking, but an interesting night, and a lot of people want to hear your review of the main event, but we got to get there. Saturday night's main event in Washington.
Well, and I was hoping against hope, and thankfully he didn't show. I didn't want to see the bloviating flesh bag there. And I knew that Vince McMahon was not going to be there because he was in the package. And that's rightfully so, because he was part of the large part of the history. So yes, putting a congratulatory, not a congratulatory, but just a complimentary statement about John Cena in part of their package was called for. But they weren't going to ask Vince to be there live, nor possibly would he have wanted to do the public thing, whatever he's doing with. What's the name of his new company? Fucking you.
14th and I.
14th and I. Well,
which was his dad's office in Washington, D.C., where they were.
Well, yes. That was the address. There was on the 14th, the street and the I street right there. And they looked out and they saw they were running some kind of insurance scam where they had somebody taking bumps in car wrecks. But anyway, but they brought a nice cross selection of current and former and legendary, stars there to be in the crowd and everything. Angle was you don't see him all over the place. a bunch of miscellaneous unknown celebrities that are on, what was this? The Peacock, whatever they're on. There was a rapper or two, I think. The shot of when they were doing the deal where they're showing the guests and everything and the festivities and the way that, they were making the Cena retirement a big deal, that's great. But when they went to the locker room, Brian, and like his name was next to it, and the hushed tones of who was it, Joe Tessitore, when he said, "In mere moments, that locker room door will open," or whatever he's doing. It sounded like they were awaiting the comeback of Jesus. It almost got a little Hollywoody there at the start, dare I say. And then they did a career retrospective video with, I believe that was Triple H doing a voiceover, trying to sound like more like the Liv Schreiber instead of the fucking Game, right? But it was his voice, unless I'm just deaf in both ears now instead of one.
He's doing a lot of narration all of a sudden, isn't he?
Well, it's a way to keep it without having his face there, which is always a plus. He says at least he's got his voice. It's him bringing you this thing, which may come back like Al Costello's boomerang here by the end of the show. But they were trying to, but they were trying to show how beloved John Cena has been and how much John Cena loves you, the fans, in this video. And I'm just thinking, my God, everything he said and did through like fucking, what was it, July? Was like, I hate you. People have ruined goddamn everything. I'll get revenge on you if it's the last thing I do. And suddenly he's beloved and he loves you. And for this, ladies and gentlemen, and by the way, this is say farewell to a household name, the Cock. This is bye-bye to Peacock. Cock's pretty much household name, isn't it? I mean, Peacock, they're in many households.
Well, this is, as you are saying, the end of Peacock's deal with WWE. They already started pulling content off Peacock. They don't know where it'll end up yet.
They started tearing their pictures in half and keeping their half and throwing the fucking WWE half away over at Peacock.
But this was the fulfillment, I guess, the last big event they are delivering to Peacock. Apparently the pre-show and post-show was somewhere else. I guess YouTube, I don't know. Because I was watching Peacock. I wasn't going to go to multiple streaming services to see more. But yes, Peacock, the final big event of the Peacock deal.
Well, I hate to see the cock's feathers get ruffled. But never. So can we drop that now? Then am I paying for that Peacock here? I guess I shouldn't ask you. I should ask Queen Stacy, the streaming secretary in charge. But we can get rid of that now, can't we?
Yes, unless they suddenly announce that they have some kind of new deal with Peacock, and then you'll have to get it again.
Well, drop down, get it again. All righty then. So in Washington, D.C., this was the biggest arena gate ever for, not in Washington, but in everywhere, for an arena, from what I understand. For not a stadium, but for an arena-sized event, this was the biggest gate that they've ever drawn in the history of the wrestling company. They certainly made a choice but at the end of the show on doing that.
And I'll tell you, if there was ever a night to make the fans go home happy, it's when they're paying those prices for tickets.
God damn it, with that. Just what one concession stand took in on this show, I would have been in Knoxville Civic Coliseum in the middle of the ring cutting my fucking head off for Bob Armstrong. Anyhow, we should have got a little clue, Brian, at the start of this festivities that maybe there was going to be a bad moon on the rise when there was Joe Tessitore, and instead of Governor Ventura, old Jesse, he was there with Stephanie McMahon. And I struggle with Stephanie trying to be a babyface, trying to just be a good
cheerleader
person.
Yeah.
She is a great heel, but she's just a grinning, smiling, somewhat disingenuous fucking shill to give mild criticism as a babyface or change my mind.
I think she's a good heel. I won't say great heel because great heels get their comeuppance and it helps them. Good heels.
Okay, now don't
She never got, her and Triple H were the heels that never really let baby faces.
Well, yeah,
she wasn't even in the ring. She was dressing down top baby faces on the mic and then nothing would happen.
I agree with your dissecting what I'm saying to differentiate from the point, because I agree with you there wholeheartedly and 100%. But I'm saying just as a goddamn douchebag, bitchy, witchy, whiny, want to just fucking just pop her right in the fucking toes kind of fucking bitch. That's what I'm saying, performer. But nevertheless,
but they're desperate to find a role for her. That's
to my point. She is not a likable person when she's trying to just be on TV.
She comes across like a disingenuous cheerleader. And the more you see it, the less you want to see it. She got a big pop that first time she reappeared after she went away because of the scandal. Not that she was a part of it that we know of. But she went away.
No, but because of the whole incident, she had been gone and now she came back. Yes.
She came back, got a big pop. Then they start using her. Then they start trying to hype her up having a podcast where apparently she advertised how you could get around it with Surfshark. Those horrible deals. So they're trying to find a role for her, and what's it going to be? Like you said, the only role that really worked was her being a heel boss figure. And there are issues with that, just how it was rolled out and how it goes on and on and on, whatever. There's lots of issues with that. But other than that, what are they going to do? She's not going to do commentary. Here she is hosting. I don't know. I don't think she's that great. You know, they're going to keep trying to find roles for her, things for her to do, and it's going to be very interesting.
Well, and of course, Governor Jesse, normally this is the podium spot, not the commentary. Joe is the host, and then he tries to keep Jesse from burying the product. In this case, he was just there to facilitate Stephanie's rah-rah stuff. And then apparently Jesse was on either the pre-show or the post-show, which we assume it's on YouTube or whatever the fuck, correct?
But I think so. I think it would be, yeah.
Did they have to, obviously they had to bring him contractually, or because why would you bring him and not put him on the show? Or were they trying to make him feel good? I would think that Jesse Ventura would have been like, fuck you. If you just need me on the pre-show YouTube, I'll stay home. So I'm wondering how that's kind of almost like, why bother? Am I reading too much into this?
It's interesting. Yeah. I mean, unless John Cena said, I want Jesse Ventura there, we heard that his deal expired. He wasn't at the last Saturday night's main event. We heard that the 1-year contract that he had with them was up, but maybe there was one more day, but that wouldn't explain why he wasn't on the event. Because if it was a NBC or Peacock or Saturday night's main event thing, he would have done anything on that. Apparently he was on the pre-show on YouTube or wherever it was, or post-show.
Well, and I was thinking that on the show, they could have even put him with, Nick Khan was in the front row, along with Kurt Angle, and I have my notes for my various legends, but point being, all these celebrities were in that front row area. He could have, hung out in that company. Nevertheless, I'm not advocating he should do any more commentary. I don't misunderstand me there. All righty, so the place was packed, 19,000 whatever people with this. I don't even know if they've released a gate or the gate or whatever, if we have statistics on that. But the record gate, and the place was packed on the floor all the way back to the entranceway. where they had a kind of a tunnel thing that they could get away with without blocking any seats off. And then a 4-foot wide aisle like the territory days. Brian, that would have been, oh no, in a well-maintained ringside setup. That's as much room as we got. And we didn't have bicycle racks in most places, but a good one. You can imagine if anybody wanted to just reach in and just fucking punch you right in the ear, on a 4-foot aisle, you can't be more than 2 feet away from anybody. But everybody made it through unscathed on this one. But that shows you how many people were there. And this was the concept where they have the exhibition matches. Although I didn't hear them over beating the word exhibition to death. Did you?
That word went away after that promo, it seems like.
Yeah. So it was NXT guys versus WWE full-time roster guys, but they started out with Cody against Oba Femi. And remember, I made fun of Oba because the time we watched NXT, did he not? He did a promo and the accent, it didn't thrill me. And he did there was some interaction with him and some of these other yahoos, right? So, okay. But this against Cody with this presentation in front of a fucking big crowd with the big building and etc. Visually, he's got it down. And athletically, I'm not saying he's a technical wizard, but athletically, he can do everything possibly that he needs to do. I can tell that already. And I think, honestly, I don't know whether he was possibly nervous, I'm sure he was at some point, but whether they was showing or whether this is the way he always looks when he's in a match, but he needs to be more aggressive in body language and facials without actually doing anything like of his moves faster. Because Cody called this so that he cut Cody off right away. And then Cody could fight from underneath and he could control the tempo and make sure that Oba didn't rush. And it was methodical, but he made the shit count. And that was why Cody was doing the deal where we're going for a degree of difficulty of 5 and an execution of 10 instead of the other way around. So he did his shit and Oba Femi was there for it, but he didn't want Oba to go overboard. See what I did there?
Very well done.
Apparently you just didn't give a shit.
I just said very well done.
You should have popped and blown snot everywhere. But
that was great.
All right. Woo, there's the slide whistle. What I'm talking about with more aggressive in body language and facials is there, and he had some good facials. I'm not saying he's Gargano in some good reactions to things, but there are times where you can look at his face and see he is thinking about something and trying to remember something, or just look at his face and see he's a normal guy. If you take his visual presentation, the entrance they've got for him with the lighting and everything, and every time that he's in view, especially of the floor cameras, the handhelds, and they can see his face up close, that he's got his eyes fixed on the opponent or something, and he has the emotion and the intensity that he wants to portray on his face and in his eyes, rather than just sitting up and the difference. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And if Cody is stretched out or on his knees before him and he's going to pick him up, I don't want him to just rush and grab him and jerk him around, but I want him to come up with more goddamn tension in his body and his arms spread out. And then when he grabs Cody, the drawback and the laying on of hands with a smack that you can hear on the traps, and then soften up and then work like he's jerking a guy into the thing. Because the way he looks And this is a guy again. I think he's a babyface in NXT because he was working here as a rough heel instead of, or a rough babyface rather, instead of being a full-fledged heel. But this is the kind of guy that would almost get over as a dominant heel that gradually switches and becomes beloved, etc. But he just visually, he needs to look more like a fucking loose nut and an aggressive, savage type of fucking attitude to match that physique and that look and the athletic ability he's got. He can fucking spine busters and shit. He can move like a fucking cat. So I think he just needs to work on having more confidence, maybe. That's what I'm saying. Maybe he was a little nervous on this one. But when he can really, just snarl a bit, I would like to see that. But it's hard. How is this guy a babyface? Good Lord, he looks like the star of a goddamn, monster movie. Your thoughts?
Not sure what monster movie that would be. That's my first thought. Secondly, I could see what you're saying. It seemed like the fans were really into him there. I think early in the card, it was clear that the fans wanted like a special night in some way.
Yeah.
And I think they even wanted Obafemi to get a surprising win here. But I thought it was all right. I could see some of the tentativeness, I guess, that you're explaining, if that's the best word to encapsulate it. But I think he's good. But he's also a guy like a Tiffany Stratton or a Sal Ruka or any of these other people who had nothing to do with wrestling, were serious athletes, drafted into WWE, and have learned the business from zero to now in 3 years or whatever it may be. And again, we just talked about guys in the 80s who in 3 years were doing incredible things. So it's not like you need forever to become the best, but he's in that WWE system. It's their way.
Number of repetitions in actual practice rather than, and in a variety of positions, as we've talked about many times, rather than just in the gym and or one place for the same amount of time or for that whole period of time.
Yeah. So
nevertheless,
I think he's really good for someone who's only done stuff in WWE, the WWE way, under Shawn Michaels and Triple H from the beginning till now. He's really good with all of that as the caveat.
That's the thing, is that 3 years, because he wasn't a fan, is also a short period of time when you're talking about he should be able to figure out how all of this shit's supposed to look, just instinctually. And that's hard when you've never watched the product at all.
And I assume he wasn't a fan. At least he wasn't involved in wrestling. He wasn't in a training school or anything. He was an athlete.
Well, yeah, that's what, from scratch. I mean, maybe he watched it in his childhood in the kingdom of Nigeria, or where did we establish he's really Nigerian, but he was putting the accent on to some degree?
I think that's what it was. He really is legitimately Nigerian, and he puts on a forceful Nigerian accent.
Forceful. Well, he was forceful here, and he actually gave Cody a big fucking shot over the desk. They went and everything, and Cody busted his ear open for real, I think, on one of those desk chairs that they have when he went over the desk. But so the ear blood added to the thing. And then they were having, Cody again was calling this, and obviously he's gave the other guy most of it. And then he did a cutter off the top and got a 2 count. And then out of nowhere, here was Drew McIntyre. And he got on Cody, and boom, 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 just a few seconds. And Obafemi pulls Drew off, and they have a face off. And the fans were getting up and Oba shoves Drew on his ass, and then Cody runs by him and gives Drew a cutter, and Oba gives him a choke slam, and Drew says, fuck it, and gets out of there. And Oba and Cody held their various belts up, the NXT belt and the WWE belt. So, am I crazy that maybe couldn't they have had Drew McIntyre come out to interrupt before the first entrance and just pitch a big fit out there in front of those people about how this is ridiculous? They're on a prestigious network like Peacock and on a Saturday night, and I ought to have a match with Cody Rhodes right here, right now, instead of some unknown, goddamn local yokel, whatever. And let Oba come out and dust Drew out a bit or whatever, or the officials kick him out. And then and then they have the fucking match. Then it makes a little bit more sense to everybody sitting there. If Drew got kicked out, he comes back with the goddamn hoodie on. They do that every other week anyway. Why? Help me, Brian. Would anything have been a little more exciting than this thing, which was kind of flatter than a fucking snake's belly in a wagon rut?
I didn't mind it as much as I maybe should, but I didn't mind it. I thought the match was good. I thought once Cody started bleeding and it wasn't typical wrestling blood, it wasn't from the typical places, it kind of made you perk up a little bit. Like, oh man, look what's going on here. This guy is dominating Cody. I didn't expect Drew to run in. I also didn't know how they were going to get out of this. Because I'm thinking, Cody can't beat him because that'll kill him, but they've done that to people before, but I don't think they're going to do it to him. And he can't beat Cody unless they're going to give him a super push right out of the gate. So I'm trying to figure out what they're going to do. And Drew interfered, and I didn't mind it because it gave him an out, but also it wasn't just like interference for no reason. It was interference that happened, and then Obafemi gets mad because now he lost the match because of this interference. Him and Drew get their moment together. People start making noise about that. Drew, as always, gets beat up and is cheated and has to leave and be mad about it in the future, but I don't know. It was kind of like in the movie Body Slam when Quick Rick Roberts and Tonga Tom beat Little Will Hutchins and his brother, and after the match they all stand up and shake hands and celebrate before the fans. It was kind of like that. It was an exhibition, and these two guys came together. There wasn't any tease like, oh my God, whose side are they on? No, they were on the same side from the moment Drew got in there.
I agree with many of the points you made in that dissertation just now, except for the fucking thing about Tiger Tom and the fucking Funky Bunch in the Body Slam movie or whatever.
Tonga Tom.
Whatever the case. But what I agree with, because no, they should not. Obviously, they shouldn't have beaten Cody here, but obviously they also shouldn't have beaten Obafemi. And I knew they were going to have to get out of it, quote unquote, some kind of way, as they say in the business, son. But what I'm saying is the way they set it up was just, especially in front of the people live, was very abrupt, especially on the prices they had paid and also what they were going to see later on in the night. That it just like put some effort into this thing, make some tension beforehand. Did Drew bump into fucking Obafemi and tell him he was a goddamn, nobody piece of shit that didn't deserve to be in the ring with Cody and better fucking bow out now, son, or I'm going to fucking take care of you later on. And they had some kind of pull apart. Now there's police been taking statements and whatever, just instead of just, oh, it's time, go out there, DQ. That's the point that I'm making, Brian. But they did that.
Do you think Obafemi should be in NXT too much longer?
No, because I mean, he's been there for 3 years now. I think this is the only match I've seen of him, but I would think at this point that he shouldn't be there much longer, because if this was just a mirage and Cody made him and they don't think he's ready for the main roster, how much fucking longer is it going to take? They ought to at some point let the guy see what the fuck, if they have a good presentation for him. And it looks like they've put a little thought into his lighting and shit. So I don't know about his little strut, whatever the fuck that thing was, that he did down the entrance aisle. But he's more impressive than a lot of things I'm seeing on the main roster television. So can you find some guys to work around him and give him some main roster experience and let him get more confident? What the fuck? At this point, you just can't keep all the kids in the house forever. They have to go out and find a job sometime.
Well, that was the opening match, Cody Rhodes versus Obafemi. And of course, Jim, if I had asked you in advance, if you want to play the slots... Boy, I'm trying to make a transition here. It's just not happening. Jim, life is about... Go ahead, please.
No, keep going. Keep going. I want to hear it.
Life is about enjoyment. In life, you need to be able to enjoy yourself. Cody Rhodes obviously gets a lot of enjoyment from bleeding and working with younger wrestlers, as we saw here. And some people get enjoyment from playing the slots. And of course now, thanks to your friend, your good old pal, Jim Cornette, there's a way you could do it from home with a great deal. Go, Jim.
I'll tell you something, Brian. That was a wonderful introduction of our fine friends over at DraftKings Casino. And I would have think that it could have been condensed. And the thing about it is, Cody won that one by Cody he didn't win. So I don't know. My transition would suck either. I would say,
Cody won though. Let's go with that. I like that idea.
I would say Cody was lucky. And if you want to be lucky or somebody was lucky, hey, you want to get lucky, kid? If you want to get lucky, folks, you go to DraftKings Casino. You just had to mention the word luck and see, then you could just go right there. Folks, if you're feeling lucky, then you need to go to DraftKings Casino because it's the one version of all the holiday chaos that might actually pay off, because whether it's not lights and wrapping paper and family over for the holidays, it's just you. Download the DraftKings Casino app and use the code Cornette, Cornette, and then it's just you and luck and mama luck and mother chance and father time. How much time do you have left to do this? It's all up to them, but they're only metaphorical people that won't be involved in the room with you at the time, unless you hire some type of role-playing BDSM stooge off the internet to come and role-play father time and mother chance and sister to luck. And if you know my sister, you'll know that you're going to get lucky. And right now...
What are you saying? Why are you saying these things?
I'm telling the people at DraftKings Casino that if they play $5, then they're going to get 50 spins a day for 10 days on the cash eruption slots. And what that is, that's where the cash literally comes right out of the slots in your computer. Erupts all over you. They shove it through the goddamn signal. And whenever you win, it's a thing, and bells go off. And there is some element of spillage of a liquid, but that's only
none of these
to grease the wires.
None of these things are promised, guaranteed, or at times expected, but what you can expect is to sit back at home and enjoy what you normally would somewhere else, but at home.
Yes, just stay home.
That's right, stay home.
Well, you can do this out and about if you're on your phone, but you can always stay home and still enjoy the outside experience. But right now, play $5 and get 50 spins a day for 10 days on the cash eruption slots at the DraftKings Casino app with the code of Cornette and enjoy holidays on the house. It's their gift to you this holiday season with DraftKings Casino, and yours truly, me and Brian. We are giving you this opportunity to clean up and have all kinds of various objects come out of the cracks of your computer. An eruption of cash. And the crown is yours. But you know what, Brian? There's still more information. People need to know a certain amount of things. We don't want to go off without informing the folks of certain caveats to these. Are you ready? Can I take a drink before I caveat?
Take a drink, and of course, Jim's going to tell you some of the things you need to keep in mind as you take advantage of this wonderful deal from DK Casino, our friends at DraftKings.
Yeah, you're going to play all your 50 spins by the time I finish with this. So, gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. 21 plus, physically present. You must be in Connecticut, Michigan, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, only, void in Ontario. Eligibility restrictions apply. Non-withdrawable casino spins issued as 50 spins per day for 10 days. Valid for featured games only and expire each day after 24 hours. See terms at casino.draftkings.com/promos. Ends January 25th, 2026 at 11:59 p.m. Eastern. If there are any voiceover artists in our audience that want to send us a file of this, I will pay you $50. Good day.
If we approve of your work, not just anyone who sends it in, and this is you making this guarantee, not Arcadian Vanguard or myself.
I didn't give my address, did I? Just send it to you. If you like it, I'll pay them.
Well, once again, Jim, the crown is yours one more time.
Yeah.
How can the listeners get this crown or access to it?
With the code Cornette. By downloading the DraftKings Casino app and using that code, you will just be spun for the next 10 days. And that's a great way to spend the holidays.
Well, Jim, why don't we spin our way back to Saturday night's main event in the nation's capital? There's more show before the main event.
Well, in between each of the various segments, they were doing tribute segments and clips of the greats, near greats, former greats, and people who are grating on you. We're all talking about how great John Cena. I'm surprised they didn't get a comment from Tony Khan, but about how great John Cena is. But they were making it. It was a nice thing in between. It didn't drag like the normal travel logs, but and there were some more unknown people at ringside. And Chuck Zito. He looks the same as he did 40 years ago, because he looked like an old mobster then. Is it just my imagination because I don't see him but every 20 fucking years or so? Or was that a wig he was wearing? Is that some kind of Ernest Angley type of apparatus?
I don't know why you'd go after Chuck Zito. No, he looked fine. He looked like he's aging very well.
That's what I'm saying. How the fuck old must he goddamn be now?
He's got to be in his mid-70s, I would guess.
His hair's so black lightning bugs are following him around in the daytime.
Well, he was there for John Cena's final match.
Yeah, he was there for John when John needed him.
Like you said, they had celebrities there. They had these videos of celebrities who weren't there sending in their thoughts. It was good because really this Saturday night's main event was all about one match. There were other matches, and the fans enjoyed them. But it was almost like they were treated mentally like exhibitions because it was about one match. So all of these things,
Yeah.
it was almost more like a boxing event in that sense than wrestling, where the main event matters. There's a bunch of other stuff, but everything's pushing one thing, and that's the main event.
But we weren't there yet, because next up was the other exhibition. If you'd have said, "Hey, Saul Ruka is an exhibitionist," I would have paid on pay-per-view for that. But just her exhibition, it wasn't the same thing I was thinking. But no, Bailey and Saul Ruka. Bailey had Lyric with her. Saul Ruka had, what's her name, Daria with her. They didn't get involved because they're all baby faces. But I'm going to admit, Brian, that I was mistaken. I skipped the first couple of minutes of this because I thought, remember the last time I saw Saul Ruka, she did the reverse backwards inverted Guernsey flip, whatever the fuck, and tried to get the two girls with the cutter and just fell at their feet, just whiffed past both of them.
Yeah, and then we heard from fans, that's her signature move.
Well, and that means that, I pretty much didn't need any more of those autographs. But I thought, wait a minute, it's Bailey. So after 2 or 3 minutes or whatever it was, I slowed it down and started watching it. And I've got to admit, I was wrong. She's not rotten. She's not bad. Obviously she looks great. I can see the potential in the athleticism, but I think, again, I don't know how long she's been around, but it might be it's another one of these things with the Obafemi we talked about, where did she know what this stuff was supposed to look like beforehand, or is she started from scratch? And sometimes just because you can do all of she does good athletic gymnastic things that show her gymnastic background, but sometimes it does come off as, I think we said this about another one of the young ladies, like a gymnast doing wrestling rather than, you see what I'm saying? But that's polish. She needs polish. I will actually volunteer right now for free to go out to Saul Ruka's place and wax her. Up and down, give her a good shine. She got a lot of potential here.
Oh boy.
But finally, well, I mean, it's just
potentially she'll be calling the cops very soon.
I'm a sympathetic and compassionate and a charitable guy. I'm willing to contribute my time for free to smooth out her rough edges. Make sure she gets all of her edges rubbed.
All right, Mr. Laurinaitis, let's get back to the match here. What is wrong with you? Look at these things you're saying.
Wait a minute. Come on now. I didn't ever see her in a lingerie catalog. So old Saul hit a roll up and Bailey kicked out and Saul jumped up on the turnbuckle and hit. From the camera angle, I couldn't tell either way, but it seemed like the people didn't fart at it. So I think she hit the finish on Bailey. And then Bailey was in the ropes, so Saul pulled her in. Bailey rolled her up, but Saul reversed it and boom, caught a quick one, as Vince McMahon would just goddamn pummel you with a hammer for saying. She caught a quick one, and Saul Ruka won over the...
I call this one the hammer, Greg Valentine.
Well, maybe he called it the quick one. That's what the problem was. Which Saul won, and Bailey led and did a good job with this. And I mean, she's the experienced pro here, but Saul ain't bad, is what I'm saying. Better call Saul if you need a forward inverted Guernsey flip done.
Well, she's good, and she's got, she's not a tiny girl that you always criticize. I guess that's the best way to say it. I was going to say she's got some size to her. It's not that she's big, it's just she's tall, I guess. And she's an athlete.
She just has a more commanding presence and looks like a full-grown woman, and you could see her in some type of various action movie type of role.
She looks like a star. Now, she looks like a star. Yeah. Well, that's 2 for 2, I guess, in terms of NXT talent you're seeing on this show, who clearly they've been integrating more onto the main roster and these various things they're doing on SmackDown and Raw. 2 for 2. Same issues, you think, or in terms of Obafemi, where talent, size, look, but you could tell by the training.
Yeah, more. They just need to grow up and get more comfortable and more confidence, where they can show out some more oomph and that type of thing. But yeah, both of them have oodles of potential, is what I'm saying.
And if you're going to put her in there with anyone, Bailey, I guess, is kind of the best worker, maybe, in terms of just like a nuts and bolt, like the Arn Anderson of the women's division.
Yeah, well, and I mean, she's taken an interest in, from what I've seen, in helping some of the other girls get trained and get better and et cetera, and trying to give back and do that whole thing. And I'm sure she'll end up as some kind of cog in the flywheel after she's out of the ring, in training or agenting or working with the women.
Well, Jim, we went from the women's match to a match in something you have an expertise in, the tag team division, a big tag title match.
Boy, and everybody's goes, oh, Cornette. It was AJ Styles and Dragon Lee against Javon Evans and Leon, don't call me Dick Slater, as Jim Ross would have said at one point in time 20 years ago or more. Here is my unpopular opinion. I'm sorry. But as I've just talked about how much I like Javon Evans, and I think Javon Evans should be focused on, and Javon Evans should be, there should be things that only he's allowed to do. And they've given me, it's almost like the Top Flight guys in AEW, where they're brothers. They're the same height, they're approximately the same weight, and they do the same kind of shit. Leah with Slater and Evans, or Zager and Evans. Where am I going with that? Is this the year 25-25 yet? Do you see what I'm saying? Is that, yes, their tag team work together was good. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that it's two guys physically similar doing the same kind of stuff. And to me, Javon is still superior in two things. Number one, he's jumping so incredibly high. Actually, three things. Jumping so incredibly high. He has more charisma, I think, than Slater. And his body is better because he's so skinny that at least there's no fat on him, whereas Slater is just kind of a skinny guy that's still got some meat on him, but no definition. Is it just me? Is that just one of my old hang-ups of you don't have just the, unless it's a fucking identical twin gimmick tag team? Help me.
Well, again, this was at least a one-night thing. I don't know if it's something you're going to continue. Javon Evans has clearly been a priority, although we're not sure when he'll be on the main roster permanently. He's obviously still a part of things in NXT, and I guess you could say TNA. Teaming up with a TNA wrestler, you knew who was going to take the fall here, right? As soon as they said that, I'm like, I bet I know who's getting pinned tonight. But yeah, they look similar. I mean, there's I shouldn't say they look similar, but they're similar kinds of wrestlers. Everything I'm saying is wrong right now.
Hold on, listen to me. They are two guys with long hair on stage with the Doobie Brothers, both of them singing the backup vocals in the exact same key. Which was he, Ben, or was he Tom? But one of them has a little bit better voice.
Now, with that said, I think they're both good. But you're teaming them up. It'd be like if, instead of Robert Gibson, you found another guy that looked kind of like Ricky Morton to team up with Ricky Morton.
Yes, or I was going to say Robert Gibson and his brother Ricky didn't look like Robert. That's what I'm saying, is that it's not just about similarity in appearance, but they're wrestling the same style and they're approximately the same size and same body type. And since they're both trying to be exposed to a larger audience, to me, I would have rather had, my pick would have been to have Evans against AJ Styles in a single match. I could see if they wanted to have Dragon Lee wrestle Slater or whatever. But to me, it diminishes what gets either Evans particularly or Slater over as special to have both of them goddamn doing it. And the fact that because they apparently had a set amount of time that they had to hit, either that or someone was holding members of their family hostage. They had to address that situation. But this was the fastest tag team match I've ever seen, start to finish. They did choreography at 100 miles an hour. And with all the dives for the new guys, right? And the splashes and everything. And then they beat up Dragon Lee for just a bit, but then simultaneous tags where it's kind of like, oh, he's close. Okay, I'm close. Okay, we'll tag. And then a choreography at 100 miles an hour, but Javon Evans hit the biggest cutter ever. on AJ Styles, and Slater came off the top with a 450-degree splash, but it got saved, and they sold for 10 seconds so that people could chant, "This is awesome," and then 100 miles an hour again. And I'm not even saying they did too many moves here. I'm saying they did a 20-minute match in 10 fucking minutes. And I don't know that I might rather have had them cut out 3 or 4 spots and give everybody everything a chance to breathe. And I think they would have gotten even a better reaction. And then AJ went for a springboard and busted his ass. And boy, if that was the spot he was going for, he was willing to risk a goddamn injury of some kind to fall that awkwardly that quickly. But boom, and Slater got a 2 count, and Slater came off the top, and AJ caught him, and the Styles Clash, boom, 1, 2, 3. But that was my thing, is like Evans and Slater are too similar to showcase what makes each one of them special. When you've got 2 guys that are partners doing things that I believe they should be selling Javon Evans as he can do things no one else can do. And then, and here's his partner. He's doing some of it too. That's my point.
Good match. Like you said, fast-paced. The fans were into it. And I think that's the thing. The fans were in a good spirit, it seemed like, all night. Building into this main event. They were enjoying the matches. And it was now time for our main event.
Well, no, actually, it was time for the main event, all right, but they wouldn't let us have it yet. I'm not going to, discuss it or anything, but R-Truth and Miz did a little stand-up comedy in the ring so that they could say Joe Hendry's name, and he came out and they beat up Miz. And I'm all for anybody beating up Miz, but do we even need to discuss? It was sort of like intermission, whereas they were waiting to make sure the bathrooms had emptied out.
He started giving a promo. He was so impassioned that, man, I'm like, man, this is really good. And then they just treated him like the same jobber they always treat him like. Everything you say is true. I main evented in WrestleMania and beat John Cena. It seems crazy. That seems like a bizarro universe. Like nothing real that happened here on planet Earth. But it happened. And then he went right back to doing comedy stuff with R-Truth.
Good Lord. See, there's always crackpot ideas that get through, but then just because nobody gave a shit, they forget about them until they let this guy come out and remind people. And then they're like, holy shit, they actually let that fucking happen. I wouldn't want people reminding somebody, hey, your next door neighbor, Ned, he's a sex offender. Ah, shit.
That's probably a good thing to remind people in the neighborhood that Ned is out on the loose.
Not to Ned. That's the thing. Does Ned want you to be, hey, don't go around reminding people. That's what I'm saying. They're netting themselves.
Yeah.
They're netting themselves when they are reminding people what stupid shit they did. That'll be a new adverb there, netting yourself.
Well, Jim, as I was saying, it's time for the main event.
It certainly is. John Cena's last "You Can't See Me" hurrah. And they brought Gunther out, and that's what this obviously all through the match. It was the crowd was into everything. But this was what they came to see. But they did the long panning, and they got the Cena chants, everybody standing up, and then they just had to turn the lights off, and and then they hit the music, and it's a giant pop. And out comes Cena, and he's milking it at the entranceway there. And did you see he took the trouble to actually take the camera from old cameraman Stu, the guy that follows him down the aisle every goddamn, so I guess since he's been there or whatever, that he always talks to. He took the camera so he could turn around and shoot Stu one time before he left, and they fucking didn't take the shot. Did you see that?
I was waiting to see who he was going to... I was waiting to see it happen. It never happened.
It did, because they didn't take the shot. He didn't hold it long enough. As soon as they went to the shot, he was already handing it back. So you saw like Stu's nose as he panned by. And I was like, this was Stu's chance. God damn it. That should be something. They can sell more t-shirts and say, we can't see Stu. And so one of the heels can take it over. And every time he waves his hand in front of his face, people say, we can't see Stu. Anyhow, so he ran the run to the ring, got a pop. And then he had to get out and hug all the front row legends. There was Kevin Steen. He's looking fine and pudgy. And, they were up from the start and got more Cena chance. And
did the TKO make him pay for the tickets?
I bet you they probably saved him, since they already had such a gross. They probably saved like the front row there for the most important people that they wanted on camera, and them they would allow to sit gratis. That means you pay nothing. But this again was Cena, the way the match, we'll talk about the finish separate from the match. The way the match was constructed is the same thing as Obafemi and Cody, where Cena wants to make Gunther the dominant physical force here, the heel, the dragon he's got to slay. So Gunther took over right away. I mean, even in the territory days, yes, we know they were superstars, but just for the people sitting there, we used to shine the babyface a little bit just to give the people their opportunity, yay, and kind of, he all right, it's his night, and then take it out from under him. But there's not that long of a period anymore. But nevertheless, Gunther took over so that Cena could fight from underneath. And the people were with it because of the circumstances here. They were chanting, fuck you, Gunther, which got bleeped, or they tried to bleep it, and you tapped out. And Gunther took his time and beat up John Cena. Now, here, as obviously as anybody with working eyeballs could tell, John Cena was calling this match. I'm surprised they don't just give him a megaphone like Rudy Valley and let him say, oh. The lips, I just can't look away from John Cena's lips now, Brian. Does that make me in some weird way weird? That he's just obviously talking all the time.
It's so obvious, and Gunther was doing it too. Both of them throughout this entire thing, it was one of the things that could take you out of a match. They were both doing it so obviously so much that you can't ignore it. You'd have to force yourself to ignore it, so that's why you pay attention to it.
Yeah. Well, but here's the thing. I believe John sat down and got all kinds of input, watched some Gunther matches, and, asked him, you do the power bomb, you do the chop, you do this and that, and got all kinds of input. But this was a John Cena match against Gunther rather than a Gunther match against almost anybody else. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And part of the, obviously, just the beating up the babyface, letting him fight from underneath, that's anybody's match. And they both did their regular moves. John did most of his regular moves 2 or 3 times, but it wasn't the same kind of pace and style and flavor you get from the typical Gunther contest. But again, the people were all over it. Fuck you, Gunther was a popular goddamn phrase. And then they did a string where Gunther would just fuck with the people while Cena struggled to his feet and then hit the ropes and clothesline him. And I think they did that about 5 times or so over 2 minutes. And the crowd was chanting asshole. But then John fired up another little comeback. He had already done You Can't See Me at that point once. He did a second You Can't See Me. And then got the AA and a 2 count. And then the match is not at a blistering pace, but the fans are with it and they've told a story, and the heel is just wiping his feet with the babyface. And the babyface made that little comeback. And then Gunther gets the sleeper, and John Cena slips that and gets a sleeper. And it started getting slow. They went out on the floor and he beat Cena up on the floor a little bit. And then they did the stunt spot where Gunther took Cena up the stairs by the desk, and then Cena gave Gunther an AA through the announce desk. And then back in the ring, another one at a 2 count. And then the big leg off the top to the back of Gunther's head, which there's a reason why Bobby Eaton never did that, is it defies the laws of physics to make that look good with the way that they've presented it. Brian, am I being too critical? The leg drop off the top to the back of the head with the guys bent over.
I don't think you're being too critical about that, no, because he was waiting there for a while for it.
Well, and besides that, you can't. The reason why the Vegematic worked was because the guy was only a foot off the ground and he could go ba-bam, leg into guy into mat with guy's ass on top of him. But the guy looks like he's just committing suicide and trying to kick the guy on the way down. Anyway, Cena milked the one more you can't see me, and there's Gunther's just laying there motionless for like a minute while John winds him up. Now, say it all with me now. Say it all with me. And he fucking, they did. And before he could, you can't see Gunther fucking spoiled it and kicked him and power bombed him and got a 2 count. And then they did the yay boo back and forth, which again was not the cadence with which Gunther normally has these slugfests, like with Ilya or, whatever. But again, John's working hard for his age and his social status and position in the fucking standing in the community. But then, after Gunther foiled an AA and hit the power bomb and splashed him and got a 2 count, Gunther got a sleeper. Then Cena fought it but couldn't get out. And then he fought out, but Gunther got it back. And then Cena talked to Gunther and he fought up, and then Gunther got on his back. And I wrote at this point, I've noted I've gone to sleep. And then Cena broke it and Gunther got it back. Cena talked to him and fought up and broke it. Gave him an AA 2 count, and then Gunther got it back. And through a lot of this, as much as I love Gunther, and it pains me to criticize anything he does, but he's got to be tighter with the sleeper when he's working, especially his right hand. He needs to adopt. If most of the time, if you go back and watch Vern Gagne, he did it the same way every time. Gunther has got to watch the right hand that's on the top of the head and how the hand is placed and positioned, whether fingers are spread or whether it's cupping the forehead or what place it's in. And that's what you're seeing through on these floor camera close-ups. He doesn't have to squeeze the guy and try to pop him like a pimple, but he has to be on there enough to have just no obvious loosening of grip around the guy's fucking head, especially on the top hand, because that's the one the eye's drawn to. Does this make sense, Brian?
It does, and that's usually a John Cena problem where something isn't snug enough or it looks way too loose.
Well, but I will try to watch the next time that he's with somebody else and see if that was a problem isolated with Cena, because I believe I've seen him do it a time or two before anyway, Gunther. So that's just a flag I'm throwing up on the play. But nevertheless, back to this fucking finish. And now the referee's grabbing Cena's arm after he's been in a sleeper for 4 fucking minutes. And it drops twice, and then he fights up again and talks to him again. And then Gunther elbowed him a bunch and sleepered him. And people are saying on the internet that they thought that Cena, as he's in the sleeper and there's a shot of him there on the camera, that he smiled and then tapped out ever so softly, almost like he was trying to wake up a sick in-law or something. But was that a smile or was that like some kind of Stan Laurel goofy face that he was trying to make like, I mean, that's what I'm saying. It was like, and the birds are twinkling around his head, and he's out.
Those are the 2 options. Either he was smiling or he was impersonating Dick Van Dyke on his 100th birthday, impersonating Stan Laurel.
Well, there you go. That's what, because it wasn't like a big grin like he's posing for a picture. It just was a stupefied look with kind of a closed-mouthed, lips pursed, fucking crooked Stan Laurel type of thing.
Or it's almost funny if he smiled like that, because here he is tapping the guy whose whole catchphrase was never give up. And his final match ends with him giving up.
But also, it wasn't like a frantic tap out.
No.
It was, and the crowd, again, by the way, 5 minutes. It was the last 5 minutes of the match. They had a match going, and then the last 5 minutes of the match was this sleeper trying to get out, getting back in, getting out, all the things I just described. 5 minutes. The crowd was like, what the fuck? And when they showed shots of them, mouths were open. They were holding their hands over their head. One guy before they cut away, had mouthed, before they cut away from him. But it was like a, what the fuck did I just spend my money on type of what the fuck. Not like a, oh my God, I can't believe I've seen this awesome thing. They were befuddled. They were sad. They were bummed. It wasn't. I'm sorry. I know, and people were saying, oh, Gunther had a lot of heat in this match. And they had footage on the internet, on Twitter, of Gunther going to the bus or whatever transports him these days. And the fans are going, fuck you, Gunther. And it was, old-fashioned heat. No, nobody, it's good for today, but that's not what old-fashioned heat looked like, because it was 2 or 3 guys going to a goddamn rental car with maybe a cop or two, rather than here's this procession of security detail onto a giant rental bus while people are behind barricades. But good for today. But the point is, it was not good heat. It was crowd deflated heat. At the end, they had heat during the match, and then it was like, no, that's not what they wanted to see. And so much of this, the whole thing has been not what they wanted to see. But this,
you're talking about the last year or this match?
Yeah, well, the last year, but also as pertains to this particular match, Brian, explain to me, if you can, how that they wanted to think that 5 minutes of fighting in and out of a sleeper was going to be the way to take this thing home, instead of Cena making the epic rally comeback of his career against all odds, and then fucking Gunther hitting that goddamn power bomb about 3 or 4 times in a row, boom, and top spread or whatever. Would have been more exciting than this?
You would think so. You would think it would have to be. I think at a certain point you had to expect that Cena wasn't going to win. It seemed like that. He'd be all about putting someone else over. Every time we saw him the last several years, he came back to put someone over, whether it was Bray Wyatt in that weird video match or Austin Theory. That's what he did. Solo Sikoa. That's what he did. So it's not a surprise, but the way it was done, the drawn-out nature of the sleeper hold, which, when it was frequently used in WWE, put someone to sleep in like 30 seconds at most. But it was almost like you were watching the energy get sucked out of the crowd. They wanted a John Cena celebration. A celebration of that era, you could say. And it didn't happen. And it wasn't him getting pinned and then you react. It was a long, drawn-out again, he gave up. His whole thing was never give up. It's fascinating that his career would end, and the message is, give up. Just give up. That's kind of amazing that he would allow that. But I think they probably should have.
Give it up. Give it up. Baby, give it up.
I think they should have done a John Cena last match with someone they were okay with him going over.
Oh, you think?
And I think doing this, I guess it helps Gunther as a heel, because now you really don't like him and he ended Goldberg's career and he's ended Cena's career. Who will be next? But this entire year feels like a mistake. This entire year, whether it was triggered by the Cena thing or not, this entire year felt like a giant step backwards. And you saw the post-match. You saw those fans who were dedicated WWE fans who paid a ton of money to be there for that night. You saw their reaction to Triple H, who's the person they blame or give credit to for everything that happens.
Hold on, let's not get there, because one thing, here's a question. Is it ending someone's career when they've already said they're quitting? That's the thing.
Well, yeah,
it's
that's
not,
last match. Yeah, you're right.
No, ending your career is like, I'm going to hurt you so bad you can never do this again. That's ending your career in wrestling. But everybody's saying, oh, he's ended his career. No, he just had his last match because Cena ended his career. He said, I'm not doing this anymore. Whether he won or lost is fucking immaterial. But the point is, I think, and yet we're not even going to go into the heel turn. We've done that, and you can find the videos, folks, on the YouTube channel where we've talked about the heel turn and the inanity of the whole thing. And then suddenly, never mind.
Just wait, Brian. You hate everything with The Rock. This will all pay off. Yeah, did it pay off? Did it pay off, or did it play out exactly like I said it would?
It was a cash eruption all over the place. Yeah, they splooged on us all right, but it was so bad, and finally they just said, never mind. And all those horrible things I've said about everybody are forgotten. And then out of nowhere, Brock Lesnar just comes and just beats a teetotal shit out of Cena without him being able to goddamn blow his fucking stinky breath on him. And then never another, they're not talking about it really. But at the same time that no rematch or no chance to get even or whatever, Cena just never even, he just didn't want any more of that shit. What the fuck, what was that needed for? Now Brock's going to quit by next year. So was that his third to last match or whatever? And then I think I said this, was it a month ago or after Survivor Series or whatever? I know that at the start of this thing, they thought the Saturday night's main event was going to be on NBC, big network TV exposure, big deal. We'll make it Cena's last match. But when this thing was moved to the Molted Bird, and they just had Survivor Series, which was in a stadium, I think they missed a chance to have their cake and Edith too, when they could have had Gunther beat Cena at Survivor Series and potentially even for that Intercontinental title, or they could have done a one-off with fucking Dom or whatever, and then brought Cena back to win this particular retirement match, still against some kind of top-level individual. But to give these people that paid these huge prices a reason to smile on the way out. This wasn't a make them mad, get heat with the crowd like, oh, I can't wait to see the fucking rematch when he gets even with it. They're not going to. John's not getting even. So that's what I'm saying. They had a big show where they could have done the big job of John Cena to have Gunther, hopefully, or whoever the fuck they wanted, beat him, and then gave him an opponent so they could have had a thrilling back and forth. And there you go. John Cena, one last time, goes out a winner on the shoulders of his multitude of fans. And instead, everybody's like, well, fuck. Well, fuck. Now, Brian, isn't that what you said? Well, fuck.
You know, again, it seemed like we were just waiting for it to come after like 2 minutes of the sleeper. I don't care how many times he fought out of it. You were just waiting for it. And then there was the lame tap. Even some of the talent, I saw some footage of them in the crowd. They said, oh, fuck. And then it was, not forced, but then it was like, all right, now it's time for the planned post-match ceremony. At one point, you saw some guy directing traffic, telling wrestlers, you go here, you go here, you go here.
Yeah.
But again, they already killed.
I've herded cattle. I've herded cattle before, and trying to do one of these things with getting all the boys to go. They'll bunch up on one side. You won't be able to see anybody. They're blah blah blah. But the thing is, the crowd was already chanting bullshit.
Yep.
When they were sending all the roster out to be with the stars in front, Triple H and Steph and Punk and Cody and Taker and Michaels and all the talent. And the crowd chanted bullshit and then settled down and segued into a thank you, Cena, because they knew it wasn't his fault. And he was kind of sitting there on his ass looking at him like, well, but the thank you to Cena chant would have been a lot bigger and more vociferous if he was standing there, winded and on a knee, but holding his hand up in the air. It would have been a little more vociferous. And then as soon as Triple H is visible at ringside, the crowd's, you fucked up. You fucked up. You fucked up. I've never seen, there was at least 50 recognized top wrestling stars from around the world visible to those people. And they were happy about everything except whenever Triple H made himself visible or attention was drawn to him, they would turn like a pack of angry wolves. And they would chant at him or boo him. And I've never seen anything like it. Out of 49 positive and 1 you son of a bitch.
And it's all based on the finish.
The finish.
And the booking. That's the interesting thing. They're booing the promoters specifically because of what they just got.
Cody and Punk gave Cena both of their belts, and the people chanted, thank you, Cena. And he held all the belts up to all 4 sides of the ring, and the people cheered, and he handed them back to Cody and Punk, and the people are happy. And he turns around and shakes Triple H's hand, and the whole crowd went, boo, fuck you. And then Triple H points to the Cena music video that they played on the screen in the building and on the air, on the broadcast. And again, a wonderful, all their production shit, great video, etc. But then by the time they got out of that, Triple H had got his bald head out of there, and Cena took his bows to each side of the ring and saluted and took his shoes and wristbands off and left them in the middle of the ring and walked down the aisle and turned around at the entrance, and with a wink and a bow, and he put his hand to his nose and flew up the chimney. I know that's old St. Nick. With a wink and a bow and a salute, he said, it's been a pleasure serving you all these years. Thank you. And off he went. Into the sunset.
Boy, his career, his last match ended the way a lot of his career went. It was just frustrating. Just frustrating.
I don't know in hindsight how or why they did a variety of the things they did. It was there. It was easy. It's the last year of one of the biggest stars you've had. He can still go in the ring. Just book the fucking pay-per-views, let him promote it on some television, figure out 1 or 2 guys you want him to put over in the course of that are going to be with you for just ages and eons. Gunther and Dominic, perfect. Don't turn him heel. Don't tell him to tell the fans that they're despicable people, that they're beneath him and they're pieces of shit. And then say, oh, never mind. And don't have a guy that's only going to have 2 more fucking matches, beat the fuck out of him with no rebuttal. And don't do these things, all of them.
During the post-show, apparently the fans really gave it to Triple H when he appeared on the podium with the post-show anchor team. Not happy about all this. At one point, There was
somebody chant like we want AEW? No, I'm sorry. We want they chanted AEW and we want Vince.
We want Vince. And by the way, that's fun thinking like, oh, that pervert who's no longer here, he wouldn't have done this.
Yeah.
Because he didn't upset you with his booking? The Undertaker's streak ending to Brock Lesnar? So I don't know about that.
But no, here's the thing. I mean, there's not a depth of reasonable thought that goes into this than I just seen that finish 5 minutes beforehand. The we want Vince sentiment is we want anybody but you, motherfucker. We'd rather have the last guy. It was just to more pointedly get under Triple H's skin. They would probably take any number of people instead of Triple H because they were mad at him. But that, I mean, my God, that ought to tell you something right there. And it's not, again, I don't know how you can measure this as good heat. It's heat on a heel or heat on a program or heat on an issue, like a Punk and Drew McIntyre thing that was so hot over the bracelet, or the Bloodline thing was so hot over the Ula Falala and Lola Falana. Now, I'll tell you what, I would have fucking fought for Lola Falana, but nevertheless, that was not this type of thing. It was, we are disappointed with what we had been waiting to see for so long, and we didn't like the way that it happened. And that's heat on a promotion, because they know that the promotion controls it now.
One last question about all this, and it's probably too early to know anything, so we're just guessing and talking. Do you think something like this could hurt? Will it hurt them the next time they come to DC? Tickets won't be as expensive, but they'll be expensive. Will it hurt them at other shows? Seeing the way they handled this event, we're seeing more and more. I mean, this is Saturday night's main event, so you can't really say it's the same as a premium live event, but 4 5-match shows where you're not getting anything at times. There's action sometimes, but you don't leave fulfilled. It seems like it's more and more with WWE. This may be the ultimate example of the fans not going home happy, not feeling fulfilled, especially the people who spent that money.
Oh, one of their holes, I bet, felt filled up.
What do you think? Do you think this could cause any long-lasting damage, either locally or with ticket sales throughout the country?
Well, this is not going to, for one thing, peacock, and it's a lame duck bird. See what I did there? And I mean, I don't know where was it as wide? Well, because still it was Cena's retirement. They're going to look for that. I was going to say maybe they can luck out and not a lot of people watch. But no, Jesus Christ, people are going to look this fucking thing up. I don't think they ought to try to run Washington anytime soon, but they probably won't anyway. When's the last time they were in Washington? So it's, even if it's twice a year, we just won't run Washington one time. This is a sort of thing that just starts souring people. There's no one sudden stick of dynamite unless, it's a massive scandal of some description. It hits the front pages. It's just cumulative. I'm disappointed in that. Well, I was kind of disappointed in that. Well, I really want to see that, but I didn't like the way that type of thing over a period of time. This certainly, I don't think, helped anything. I don't think it's going to be the end of the goddamn business. I think it's just possibly another brick in the wall type of thing. But for the people in Washington that spent that money, they probably weren't real happy at all. For the people who just watched the bad show, they're like, even if they stop watching right now because they're getting out of it, something will come along in 6 months, maybe get them back into it, that kind of damage. But not, oh God, the sky's falling. It's just a drip, drip, drip kind of thing. At some point, you get dripped on too many times and you just get in out of the fucking rain, right? But it's just another drip.
Unfortunately, whenever you see John Cena interviewed, he never really says anything. He's kind of been amazingly trained at PR, like talking but not saying anything. But I wish we can get a truth serum and really find out what he thought of this last year, because it could have gone so much better. I think plenty of other people could have booked a better year. But what was all this? And he'll never say it because everything with him is just, he's like a walking, talking, inspirational poster. He doesn't say anything that's real or genuine. He's all performance. But The Rock, and forget about Travis Scott, who apparently they all hate now. But The Rock is still on the board of directors, and he's still a major shareholder. They keep giving him shares. How's he ever going to return to TV now after all this?
I don't think we'll see him for a while because he knows he'll not get a fond reception. And if Rock does come back and get booed, he's going to say, oh, because, the final boss is an inflammatory character or whatever the fuck. But I think it might be this kind of scoffing that he doesn't want to undergo. And if I was Triple H for the next few weeks, I'd kind of lay low and stick to the voiceovers and things like that, because he's probably going to get some abuse, and he might even need to make a real popular ruling in the next week or so just to mitigate the shit falling on him.
Well, Jim, John Cena left the ring. He left his wristbands, his armbands, and of course his shoes.
Oh, and I was waiting for the fucking trunks and everything, and I think, Jesus Christ, just like the Oscars.
But I guess the question is, when we're getting back to his shoes, he left them in there. He doesn't have anything on his feet. A long walk back.
Has no shoes now.
Nothing.
He was in his sock feet.
That's right. And it must hurt walking all the way back to Hollywood without something on his feet. But we know something that looks good, that feels good, that does the job. A serious boot for a serious man from our friends at Brunt.
Well, you don't have to be a serious man to have a serious boot. You could be some kind of jolly joker and still want to protect your feet. See, these things are not mutually exclusive, but the folks at BruntWorkwear.com have made boots that even not only will workmen appreciate them, but lazy people who want to look like they're going to work will appreciate them too. And they're stylish and they're comfortable, and you can wear them and just walk around and feel a little taller and a little more authoritative because it'll give you about an inch in height. They got that non-slick grip on the bottom of them. And you can just walk down the street and they can well, you can tell by the way that I'm walking down the street. I got some Brunt boots on my feet and I'm going to kick you in the ass with them. See, like the Bee Gees did.
Just like the Bee Gees.
Just like that. Because with Brunt Workwear, folks, I've told you the Marin boots that I got, Marin, the Marin, that's the style of them. Again, they're incredibly comfortable, but at the same time, you ain't going to slip and fall down because they got the beautiful soles, but they're waterproof and they're weatherproof, and they got furriness on the inside that keeps your feet warm. And yet again, did I mention you could just kick a son of a bitch just all in the ribs and up in the fucking kidneys all day long, and it will not screw up the shape of the toe. The toe is perfectly square after a day of kicking somebody's ass.
Once again, it's important to note that we should not assault anyone unless they cause the provocation. Don't start anything. Don't start problems.
Unless they deserve being assaulted, folks, don't it? But if they deserve it, kick the shit out of them with the Brunt work boots. But again, if you're out in the slush or the snow or the mud or the muck or potentially oil, if you found oil on your property and you're having to walk through it to use a dipstick, well, you'll want these boots, and then you can afford to buy some new ones. And right now, we're going to save you some money. $10. So if you've just found oil on your property, you can save $10 off your entire order at BruntWorkwear.com with the promo code JCE. That's all you got to do, BruntWorkwear.com. Promo code JC is $10 off your entire order because, again, these things are wonderful and they're built to perform. You know what they perform is you put these things on, you can goddamn tap dance instantly.
You can't.
It's something about the boots. Well, it says they're built to perform. You put the boots on and you're tap dancing. And then here a minute later, you look like Michael Jackson. You're moonwalking up and down the driveway. And then you take them off. You can't you can't step in front of one another. You can't dance at all. You're just a klutz.
This is not
but
the
you put these boots on.
You can't.
Of course,
dance.
you do look funny. You can dance. You do look funny when you're on the dance floor wearing these boots, but it helps your dancing so much. It's a trade-off you got to make.
Dance through the mud of life with a great pair of work boots from our good friends at Brunt. Jim, one more time for these incredible. We love them here.
Yes.
You said they're your favorites. How can the listeners get these?
I went out in the snow the other day with them on.
Well, how can the listeners get...
I was afraid I'd fall down the driveway, but I didn't because it was like I was Batman climbing up the side of a building, walking up my icy driveway with these Marin boots on, and my feet were as warm as little hot dog tootsies. Bruntworkwear.com. The promo code is JCE for $10 off your entire order. Just tell them how big your foot is and they'll go from there, because that's another thing. Once you tell them how big your foot is, then they're pretty much going to figure out with that scientific formula how big your dick is. And then they'll send you advertisements for dick slings and apparatuses that hold your big dick up.
Again, I don't know what you're talking about. One more time, ladies and gentlemen, for a great workwear, great work boot, a boot that you can wear as you trudge your way through life. Brunt. One last time, Jim, without any unnecessary detail, what's that promo code for great savings?
That promo code is JCE for that fine work boot from Brunt and all the other things that Brunt Workwear has and the things that they can hold your tallywhacker with. See, that's when you send them your foot size.
No,
well, you know, you're stooging yourself off.
We did say no unnecessary
From there on, they know everything they need to know. You just tell them that shoe size. And
you hear that noise?
They won't spread it around. They won't spread it around, but they're going to know.
How do we end this? Ladies and gentlemen, once again, we love them. Great boots. You'll love them too. Get Jim Cornette's favorite. Bruntworkwear.com.
If you love them, it increases the measurement.
Bruntworkwear.com/JCE. And we shall return right after this short commercial timeout. All right, the Brunts and Grunts continue here on the show. We are back with more.
What did you hit the deep purple button on your console there to get that effect?
What effect?
The doom doom doom. It's that dong 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 dong.
All right, we're getting there. We're getting there, folks.
Yeah.
Jim, I'm going to ask you a few things about WWE Raw because this was the follow-up to the pay-per-view, and there were a few things worth talking about. But before we get there, as we are recording here, some news came out, and it's trending. Mick Foley has put out a statement about his severing of his ties with WWE, although still under contract for a little while longer, apparently. He's severing his ties. Do you want to talk about this a little bit?
The dominoes are starting to fall. And we haven't even got our show out yet where we have talked about it. And nobody has been able to come to a coherent defense of this fucking pig and his fucking pig-like behavior. And now even people, James Woods, you saw this. You just smartened me up to it. James Woods, the crackpot right-wing guy in Hollywood of all time, is condemning the idiot because he knew Rob Reiner and his wife personally. And now Mick, I just tweeted out, I've always liked him, but now he's my favorite human being in the world. He has principles. He has morals. He can tell right from wrong. He's always been against this guy and these people that enable him. But now he put his money and basically his reputation where his mouth was, and says, I'm not going to be affiliated with a company that, what's the word? You'll read it in a second, coddles this guy. Read what he put out.
He put out a statement. By the way, this was news to me. I didn't know he was under a WWE deal right now. I don't think we've really seen him. Maybe he's appeared on one of the Saturday night's main events. I'm not even sure, but I don't even remember the last time we've seen him on TV.
For merchandising purposes, you can imagine how much Mankind Cactus Jack Mick Foley is still worth, and a Legends contract, and etc. There's allegiances with most of these guys and the company in some form or another that can still be profitable for everybody, but he don't need it.
Well, here's a statement that he issued. I'm not exactly sure. This may be on Twitter. This is where I'm seeing it. Parting ways with WWE. While I have been concerned about WWE's close relationship with Donald Trump for several months, especially in light of his administration's ongoing cruel and inhumane treatment of immigrants, and pretty much anyone who looks like an immigrant, and that's in quotes, reading the president's incredibly cruel comments in the wake of Rob Reiner's death is the final straw for me. I no longer wish to represent a company that coddles a man so seemingly void of compassion as he marches our country towards autocracy. Last night, I informed WWE Talent Relations that I will not be making any appearances for the company as long as this man remains in office. Additionally, I will not be signing a new Legends deal when my current one expires in June. I love WWE, will always treasure my time with them, and am deeply appreciative for all the opportunities they afforded me. But, in the words of Popeye the Sailor, I stands all I can stands, and I can't stands no more.
Boom. And I wish that more of the boys, especially from my generation, who I've been so disappointed by, weren't either willingly blind to what's going on here, or just don't want to make the office mad, or just really believe in this horse shit that this fucking guy has spewed. He has poisoned the well of society in our country for generations to come. And you got to do something about it. And you can't be involved with people who won't do something, and not only won't do something about it, but are actively trying to support it for their own fucking financial gain. Because Linda's on this cabinet, or fucking Triple H is on this council, or they want to hobnob with the Kennedys. Fuck you.
Well, it wouldn't be the Kennedys. It would be one Kennedy. One Kennedy.
Well, it would be one, the black sheep Kennedy. But just fuck you that you want all of this money that you'll never be able to spend in your entire miserable, greedy lives, that you would just stand there and put your arm around that fucking orange pig and just smile. And not everybody in the company is nuts, but they're scared to admit it if they aren't. When they called me, how many years ago it was, a few now, about the Kane biography or whatever, I said, if you'd have called me 5 years ago, I'd have been happy to be a part of it. But now he's standing there with his arm around Donald Trump, so I'm ashamed of him, don't want to be on. And the unnamed person who I was speaking to said, well, I appreciate your honesty and your position. I wish not specifically about him, Glenn, but he just appreciated that hopefully that more people would have some goddamn principle. But nevertheless, bravo, Mick Foley.
Do you think this is just further escalation of the Mankind Triple H feud?
I think
it'll never be over.
Can we put Trump on a poll? If we can put Trump on a poll, I want to see those two one more time. Only the poll needs to be the way they did it in the medieval ages, where they inserted it up the rectum, greased, so that you would slowly sink on it because of your own body weight, and you would be disemboweled in slow motion.
All right, you're much more familiar with these medieval tactics than I am. I didn't know that's what they were doing back then. Jesus.
Hey, I watched goddamn History Channel.
Oh, is that after hours? Is that after 10 p.m. they show that episode?
No, they say it a little bit fucking more politely than I did, but they give you the same general description, hoisted on your own petard.
Instead of the foods that made America, it's the Poles that made Europe.
The disemboweling that made the Dark Ages. And, hey, Trump wants to send us back to the Dark Ages. We could bring that back for him. If you put that on pay-per-view, you'd raise enough money to cure cancer.
Well, we'll see what happens with Mick Foley, if there's any blowback or if it even matters to this. But like you said, the comments
just let me say this. It's not going to cost the WWE an amount of money that's going to cause them to go out of business, but it's symbolic. We're not going to have this relationship anymore. I'm not going to work for you, and I'm not going to take your money as long as you're coddling this. And if more people were symbolic, then that's going to spread, because a lot of people like Mick Foley. He has a lot of fans. A lot of these guys have a lot of fans. And if a lot of people that have a lot of fans or a lot of listeners would start speaking up, then maybe we could do something about this fucking thing.
Yeah, and obviously it's one thing if you root for someone or root for a side and you're willing to overlook a lot of things because things are getting done, and we could argue if things are getting done, but when it's literally just celebrating the death of someone who was thought highly of by not just people who were fans of his, but by people who knew him and by people who disagreed with him. I haven't heard one person who disagreed with him. I've seen several interviewed who said, I ran into him and he was a prick. Not one. They all said he was gracious, and it ended up with a conversation. One person had a deranged view of that, and thankfully there is some blowback, whether it's Mick Foley or James Woods or anyone else.
Well, and see, that's the thing, is that sometimes it takes the strangest happenings to change people's minds about something. And it's not about, he said bad things about Rob Reiner. It's, part of it is, but the bigger picture is that it illustrates again more clearly than ever before that he's not only a fucking criminal, he's not only a pathological liar, he's not only a narcissist, and he's not only a sociopath, he's out of his fucking mind. He can't control himself. The president of the United States has a Tourette's dementia. He's not stable. He's not fucking competent. And for the people who said Joe Biden, poor Joe Biden, a goddamn honest guy who turned 80 and got a little forgetful, compared to this, you people have to be out of your fucking minds. I want nothing to do with anybody that can compare this. It's just beyond the level of reasoning. There is something wrong with the most powerful man in the world mentally, and it needs to be addressed. All right, I'm done.
Well, it sounds like you've given your address, and I'm sure there'll be more in the future. Again, we'll stay on top of this story, and once again, our sympathies to the friends and fans and family of Rob Reiner, who did an amazing job in his life of entertaining a lot of people. Jim, you can't always guarantee there'll be entertainment on WWE Raw, but there were a few things on this week's episode that were important, I guess, to talk about because they're follow-ups of some of the big angles and big things happening. So why don't we talk about what you saw this week on WWE Raw?
Well, this was the big Raw, Brian, the Monday after the big retirement match, the tap out in the Capitol. And as I said, I think earlier in the program that we're doing here, it's not going to affect the finish is not going to affect the goddamn financial stability of the company. And long term, it's something that is going to be a downer to some people. The people in the building Saturday night were not particularly overwhelmed with it, but the people that are here now are ready. Okay, well, we'll boo Gunther because they were all over him from the time they saw him. At the top of the program, they played the package of the last match, and you didn't have to, when you watched the package, Brian, did you notice you didn't have to sit there and watch him either hold or get that sleeper again for like 5 straight minutes? It helped the overall flow of the thing, didn't it?
Hey, now that you saw that video, what are your thoughts on the debate over if he smiled or not?
I think he just had it wasn't really smiling. It was just like a resigned, oh, it's over. I would have had my goddamn tongue hanging out and been drooling and gasping and my face turning blue. But I don't know what the fuck is going on there. I still think it was flatter than 4 o'clock because it took so long to get to that point, and then it was such a but the package, and here's the thing, not an appreciable amount of people are going to go back and watch that whole match again versus watching the package version that they're going to have for the next 5 years or whatever. And it's the video makes it look like a goddamn showdown, right? So except if you were there that night, just remember, goddamn, I paid $16,000 and it just fucking flattered in a plate full of piss. They might get by with it. Anyhow, Gunther comes out, and this was not only the best promo for getting heat for a heel that I've seen in a while, but also it was the fewest words that had to be spoken, because he just walked out and gloated and laughed, and the cascade of boos and you suck and you tapped out. And every time that he would start to speak, that boo, he hates you, fuck you. But it wasn't like when they were doing it for Dominic. Dominic's thing then was to get mad and get frustrated and make the boo-boo face, and that caused him to do it more. And that was his thing because he's the Weasley little heel. But Gunther the smile never left his face. And he just milked it. And he'd speak again, boo, fuck you. And finally, yet he's still, again, he's gloating like a fucking heel. And then all he had to say was, I did what I said I'd do. I made John Cena give up, and he tapped out like a little bitch. Oh, goddamn. And he left the ring and walked down the aisle, and then he gloated, and then he walked back to the ring, and that caused him to boo. And he got in and raised his arms and triumph, and they booed, and he walked out again, and he stopped, and he came back, and he went over to the announce desk and climbed up on that and told him again, I made John Cena tap out. He was a little bitch, and it's my time now, and a blah, blah, blah. And he laughed at him, and they're fucking pissed off. And then he walked out again. And the announcers were like, he's bathing in the hatred of the fans over what he's done. And then they kept the camera going with him when he went past Gorilla backstage, and he's laughing at like some of the underneath guys, and the people are seeing this on the screen. So he comes face to face with R-Truth. Here's a whole nother thing I'll go into here in a second. But R-Truth said, you're nothing but a piece of trash. And the people pop, yay. And Gunther laughs at him and walks off. Brian, do you remember when R-Truth got fired and Ron Killings came back and had the Britney Spears moment where he cut his hair off, and he's going to be a goddamn badass for about a week and a half?
Yep.
If John Cena was really his brother or his cousin or whatever relation, is that the best he's got? Wouldn't he want to attack him? I mean, did we even need to do that thing right? Or if they just said, fuck it, we gave him his job back and now nobody remembers they were upset and go sit in catering. Is that what they're doing with Truth?
I don't know. I mean, they've established that he's kind of this Cena guy, so he got a big pop when he appeared on the screen. For a moment there, I was scared they were about to do Gunther versus Tozawa. It seemed like, I was like, oh no, that's the only wrestler I see him walking towards. They can't do this. And they didn't, thankfully. You know, I mean, they wanted Gunther to have these run-ins with people, and people were disgusted, and no one does anything.
I agree from the Gunther standpoint, and I agree with everything except R-Truth. And right now, since they're going to do nothing with him, Gunther should just slapped him naked and hid his clothes for that matter. But for a week and a half there, Ron Killings was going to fucking make his name known in the business, and all of a sudden he's back in fucking Goofy land. Anyway. So then Pierce comes up. Adam Pierce, are you proud? Are you proud of yourself? You're an asshole. He told him off and said, you're done. You can go ahead and leave the building. You're done for the night. And Gunther laughed at him. And he walked out the back door. And where were they? They were in Washington Saturday. Where were they for Raw? It's up here in the northeast.
Yeah, I forget where, though.
There's snow out there, and you could see the people's breath. And there's AJ Styles standing there, but he won't wear a coat because he's in a t-shirt. He's flexing his arms so they look good. And Gunther says, hey, you got anything to say to me? Anything you want to tell me? And AJ's like, get into your car and go.
Hershey,
and
PA.
Gunther, say again.
Hershey, PA.
Oh, Jesus Christ. No wonder the weather was miserable. And Gunther gets in the car and he's driving away. And as he drives past AJ, he rolls down the window and he does the you can't see me thing to AJ, and he laughs and drives off. And he literally maybe said 4 sentences in 10 minutes in front of the people and got more heat, and just the way he reacted. And there's so many of these guys that want to go out there and do some kind of monologue about now how they've done this and that. They're going to change the world and this and that and the other thing. And it's so prepared and it's so fake and it's so blah and long. This was a big prick. And again, he looks like just a narc that you just want to what the fuck, right? His clean cut look and his German superiority or whatever the fuck.
Austrian.
And he just Austrian, whatever. Somewhere over there. The point is he laughs at people. He's a foreigner that laughs at people and taunts them and degrades them and wipes his feet on them. And he got all kinds and it was like a 15-minute segment. You didn't get tired of it. And he wasn't saying anything. What'd you think?
I liked it. I mean, I liked the heat. It seemed like it was somewhat genuine. They know this is a guy who's a wrestler. It's not the same as it used to be, but there's legitimate anger over the finish, the booking behind it, you could argue. But Gunther the heel leaning into it was the right move. It worked spectacularly. We weren't told what he's doing next or who he's wrestling next. It was all of this, like you said, the first 10 to 15 minutes. Then he left. Were you surprised that was it? Were you surprised they didn't bring him back later in the show or do something to set something up on the show?
Well, no, because why? Why, how are you going to top that? And if he comes back out, here's another thing. A lot of the guys, Bill Dundee, Dennis Condrey, a lot of the guys taught me this when I first got into business. Once you've got some heat, go and get the fuck out of there, because the longer you stay out there, the longer they have to yell and cuss at you and fucking vent their spleen and get it out. It's like Adrian Street, and British wrestling may have been a different world, but Adrian, anytime we'd fuck the baby face or we'd do anything to get any heat, he'd want to stand out there and prance around. And as long as they were booing, he'd want, oh, yes, and do his thing. And Dundee one night said, get the fuck out of there. I said, what? Get him out of there. And they told me, I said, again, when you've just done something and made the people mad, let them see it, let it register. let them know that you did it. And then while they're still mad and yelling and throwing things or trying to get at you or whatever, get the fuck out of there because they're not finished being mad. And they still haven't said all the things they want to say. And these people in the old territory days, they would get mad and yell for so long, they'd start getting tired. And they'd have to sit down, some of the old men or women, and, oh, she's, God damn, I can't. And by that point, they're finished with you, right? But if you do it and get out of there next week when they see you again, and another thing, does that make sense?
It makes sense. And, Gunther, although out there for, like we said, 10, 15 minutes, he left, he came back, he wasn't just doing nothing, so it worked, and he left with all this heat.
That's also the thing, is that when they think he's gone and then he comes back, they're like, you motherfucker, you're coming back. That's brilliant too. And that's in matches, a lot of the old time heels, especially when there was only 3 matches on the card, they'd set their match up where they'd take a walk, as they called it, almost back to the locker room and almost get counted out a few times. And then after 2 or 3 times, the babyface would finally get fucking fed up with it and run down there and grab the guy and carry him back to the ring. And now you've killed 5 or 10 minutes and the people are standing on their feet screaming once he's carried him back to the ring and you haven't done anything. It's like, all right, when he's leaving, yeah, well, good riddance to you. And he turns around and come back. Oh, goddamn, you more?
What do you do with Gunther next? Because CM Punk's obviously in a feud with Heyman and his group, so that's one of the world titles. Cody, what is Cody doing? I don't know what Cody's doing actually on SmackDown. So I guess that is an option, but beyond that, they set up, I guess you could say, maybe a match with AJ, but he's one of the tag champions. So what do you do next with Gunther?
But hold on. What does AJ Styles have in common with John Cena?
He's retiring.
He's retiring. So it don't have to be next week, but that might be a seed because they've got Goldberg on the list. They got Cena on the list. Will they have AJ on the list? Is it building up to Brock?
I hope it's Brock and not Jericho.
I don't think it's going to be Jericho because for a variety of reasons. I think Jericho would nix that because that wouldn't be the way for him to go out being chopped by those giant meat fucking hooks. He'd want something a little easier probably, but we got cheated out of a rumored Gunther Brock match at one point, which is where that would be a real torch passing. Because Gunther's whole gimmick is built on being the ring general. He's the closest thing they've got to a legitimate wrestler in the business today. I say he's Gene Kiniski with a fucking accent. And it just to beat Brock Lesnar man to man, that would be a torch passing. That would be a big deal for Gunther. This thing with Cena has turned out to be a big deal for Gunther. Goldberg, I think, was a popcorn fart. And AJ might just be to run the fucking scoreboard up. But Gunther and Brock, to me, would be the biggest thing they could do for Gunther.
Well, Jim, that wasn't the only promo on the show. I'm assuming you didn't watch Stephanie Vaquero and Raquel Rodriguez or anything else.
I got called away to the phone.
Well,
so I'm sorry about that.
CM Punk was also on Raw this week with a promo. What are your thoughts on that?
Like Mussolini, and he's looking grumpy. See, I'm afraid if I hit the full high F note of my octave range, Brian, I'll flummox up your sound filtering devices.
You F those notes. I don't know if that's the F note.
Well, that's the thing, is that I'm the only one that can hit that. That's why it sounds so good and unique. It's my style. But Punk came out and straight to the ring. No, it's clobbering time. No happiness on the entrance because he had a snarly demeanor is what he had because he's pissed off. And again, where Gunther did a great heel promo without actually talking, Punk did a great babyface promo by, again, another example of, instead of writing shit and giving it to him, or memorizing other people's shit, or memorizing his own shit and delivering it in a goddamn monotonistic way, whatever the fuck, droning on, he's got emotion. He's got the facial expression. He has the inflection. He makes you believe that he believes the words that are coming out of his mouth. And he promoted the fucking match with him and the Netflix anniversary. Has it been a year already, Brian, since these two star-crossed lovers, WWE and Netflix, engaged in this union of holy fucking financiers? But it's going to be Braun and Punk January 5th on the Netflix anniversary, and he's selling the fucking match. He had to miss a couple of weeks of TV because he wasn't cleared after War Games because of what Braun did. And at worse, he had to sit home and listen to TV to Braun Breaker talking. He called him a cross-eyed Neanderthal Nepo baby. And he did the promo on Braun Breaker and promoted their match. You can't do it without help from your friends and your mystery masked man. But ask Paul Heyman how many times he's gassed up a talent too soon and they've crashed and burned. And he told Braun if he mentioned AJ Lee, not Styles, but Lee again, he'd rip his eyeballs out and piss on his single-digit IQ brain, and then cut the promo on Braun and the whole family. Bring them all, your dumb father and his dumber brother Scott. Even with Steiner math, GTS equals 1, 2, 3. I mean, again, a nice blistering babyface promo that sells the issue, that talks about what's happened between the two of them, that gets personal and sells the match. And to me, that's what almost all the baby faces, especially in AEW, but even in the whole business, are missing today. Is the fans want to see the baby face come out and fucking throw down verbally on what they think about the fucking heel, what they think about what the heel's done to them, and what they're going to do to the goddamn heel. That's what he just did. But that's my thoughts on that.
I liked it. I thought it picked up, and it needed to. At first, I thought it was kind of like, Punk's doing it's just a promo. It doesn't really, I don't know, wasn't connecting with me. And then he picked it up, and the last minute or so, minute and a half, whatever it was all the fire, and it was great. But I thought maybe it's because he had to fill up so much time. It took him a little while to get to the stuff that he, did so well with there. But that was my only thought.
There was one part in between, like halfway through, where he paused for a second. And I thought that was going to be some kind of music cue or something. But I think he noticed, I believe in retrospect, he noticed somebody in the crowd was starting to chant something, and he thought it was going to pick up, and it didn't pick up. And he said, oh, well, fuck it, I'll go on anyway. But otherwise than that, that's the thing, is he couldn't come out slobbering at the very start of the thing because he had however many minutes it was. And so laying down the whole preamble before he took his jacket off and got into it was a way to lay some story out without having to goddamn be out there breathing fire for 5 to 10 minutes straight. And that's another thing that would help if they were being interviewed, because Punk does such a legitimate wrestling promo in this day and age, if that can be said, that he would benefit, I think, sometimes from the guy standing there with the microphone. So when he makes a big point, then the guy could just fucking stand there where Punk could fucking look out at the people and they could react. And then the announcer could come in with, well, on January 5th, that's right, on January, and just be the bridge, right? Because elsewise, a lot of times when they're chanting or whatever, it's the guy standing there by himself. It still looks odd to me, even though they've done it for so long now.
Well, Jim, that was CM Punk's promo. Of course, there was a main event that they set up all episode here. Logan Paul versus Rey Mysterio, and a lot of the main players would figure into this.
Well, and yes, and it was a nice match for what it was. But basically, again, it was set up simply to do the finish there because we're selling the Netflix reunion. I keep wanting to say reunion show, anniversary show, or maybe Netflix is a broken marriage and they're getting together. But so they had a good match. Ray does what Ray does. And then at the appropriate point, Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed were going to come out and interfere, but Punk had said that he was going to have Ray's back. So they got about 10 feet out of the entranceway, and Punk came out behind them with a chair and whack, 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 and they turned around and ran back through Gorilla. So they fought off. And then Mysterio and Logan Paul continued, but Paul Heyman gave Logan Paul the brass knucks. But before he could use them, Rey Mysterio tripped him and gave him the 619, knocked him kind of goofy, and the knucks fell off his hand. So Ray is reaching out on the apron to get the brass knucks when the masked man, who apparently they repelled from the ceiling because nobody even popped that a masked guy was anywhere around, he runs up and curb stomps Ray on the apron, and then Logan Paul hits the splash 1, 2, 3. And then Logan Paul and the masked man face off like what the fuck's going on here? And Punk hits the ring with a chair, so both of them bail out, but the masked man runs up the stairs of the arena and then turns over, and as Punk is looking at him from the ring, he pops the hood, does the masked man, and it's Austin Theory. Surprise! And then in the ring from behind, when Punk realizes, oh shit, there's Braun Breaker, and Braun speared him and knocked him shitty and told Punk, don't ever speak that way about my family again or you'll never walk again. So do you think, Brian, because we knew it was going to be Theory because that's what people were saying, but is this going to be a thing now where Heyman's other guys didn't actually know that the masked man was going to do these things? He was in business for himself. It's Theory trying to get into the vision because he's the new young stallion, or is that the way they're going to play it? But why Logan Paul didn't know what the masked man was going to do there, or what's happening here?
I'm not exactly sure, because in the past they've also played it up like Heyman wasn't exactly sure what was happening, and they were also talking about, oh, Seth Rollins was in town, but he wasn't there, and so that plays into it. We now have to hear, I assume, Theory do a promo and explain this, or at least Heyman do it for him, but there has to be an explanation. He had a different haircut. I don't know if he had a hair transplant or what, but he had a different haircut. And
well, he shaved it almost all the way down to the nub again. I don't know. Maybe it's because I grew up in the 70s where everybody had hair everywhere. But again, that was a reason, a cause of dread that you would be humiliated by having your head shaved in a hair match. Oh my God, you're going to look like a bald-headed geek, and now everybody's doing it on purpose. I don't know what the fuck's going on.
Do you think they did this well? Do you think they did this the right way, the reveal?
Yes. Again, it depends on where they're going. I think they did this particular piece of business good because, again, it heats up Punk and Braun on the Netflix anniversary, but also now after a few weeks, we know who the masked man is. But again, is it going to be that this is Heyman's secret ace in the hole, or is this going to be that he was doing this to try to audition for Heyman's group? And that's what probably Paul is going to have to be the one to tell us. But the thing is, behind the scenes, regardless of however they're going to explain it on camera, it makes perfect sense because Heyman's got Braun Breaker, who's the future of the industry. Heyman's got Bronson Reed, who, as long as he doesn't hurt himself again, and he seems to be able to adapt his work around that ankle foot problem, whatever, he's young and he's a superstar. Logan Paul, he's the goddamn celebrity superstar of the piece. Austin Theory, and I said this 5 years ago or whenever we first saw him, he's an uncannily experienced in the ring as far as the execution of shit, his technical work in the ring, his timing, his body language. He's a goddamn superstar. He's better than Randy Orton was at that age. He's the sky is the limit. And so Paul would want that in his group. It's just that was it that they, and Vince obviously saw the same thing a few years ago, but was Theory demoted or hidden to get the Vince stink off of him? Or was he getting a big head? Or I've never met him. Was he a goddamn idiot? And they were like, oh, shit. Apparently, Paul thinks that either these problems don't exist or he can modify or control them, because in the ring, Theory, technically, in my opinion, is even better than Braun as far as the execution of his movement of his work in wrestling. I don't know where he thinks about psychology yet, but at the same point, Braun has the aura and the body that, surpasses everything. But again, Heyman's going to want the best young guys in the ring that he can mold in the way that he wants and that have 10 years or more to go with the company. So Theory makes perfect sense.
It's a hell of a group if they go that route. Theory, Braun Breaker, Bronson Reed, and Logan Paul with Heyman. That's a lot stronger than Seth Rollins with those guys, because Seth Rollins didn't need that kind of group. These guys, it's going to help every one of them just being together. It's interesting to think about, I guess it would be now, it was probably the beginning of AEW, so like 6 years or so, whatever it was, when you first saw Theory in NXT. And despite him being like in a thing with Gargano, you saw past that and you were able to see the talent, the look. And I think you predicted like this guy is one of the futures of the business, or he's a future main eventer at WrestleMania, whatever it is. It was an early prediction on him. And you did a similar thing with Braun Breaker. Of course, he has a little bit more of a wrestling pedigree, but still you saw him and you made that prediction. And here they are now, few years later, and they're in something together, and that prediction may come true, and it may be one against the other in a few years. Who knows?
But I wish that I could crow about the prediction, but you would have to be blind, deaf, and stupid to not have seen Austin Theory and go, yeah, this guy is technically size-wise, appearance, size, physique, execution of shit physically in the ring. Like I said, I've never spoken to him, so unless he's either a complete idiot or an asshole, or he doesn't seem to be one of the indie-minded goofballs that he wants to be a spot monkey. But I mean, the timing and just the body language, the whole thing. I would have put him at that point in top 5 of all of my OVW guys that we ever had in the ring. Now, I worked with them personally, so I knew who was going to potentially, blossom also, and who might not be the swiftest foot in the race. But looking at him, yes, he would be a stand, as would Braun Breaker. They'd be a standout in any class I ever had in OVW. So it's not hard to see the difference between them and everybody else in the business at their age or level of experience or whatever. It's not like I picked somebody that had no attributes and was suddenly right after 5 years. Who could not have seen either one of these guys? You'd have to be a moron.
And also, like I said before, sets up an interesting dynamic when Rollins is ready to come back. Is he going to work with Punk to take down these guys? I mean, what's going to happen? But we shall see.
Well, Rollins is definitely going to be a babyface with the people, because he's going to have been gone long enough and because of injury, that they're going to be sympathetic to him when he comes back. And it's tailor-made that he's got a variety of grudge matches against everybody in Heyman's group.
Does he team with Punk? Does he work with Punk?
Well, but hold on. You could have Seth versus Logan Paul. You could have Seth versus Bronson Reed. You could have Seth versus Austin Theory. And the real money would probably be Seth and Braun Breaker. But then also, I still think that Seth and Punk ought to be Dusty and Ole. And they shouldn't, it should never be over. They shouldn't, even when Ole turned babyface. No, we ain't gonna have anything to do with each other, at least for a fucking year, until finally, who knows what, by WrestleMania 2028 or whatever the fuck it is, and the big main event's on the line, you could actually have a tag team match with Punk and fucking Seth against, I would assume, probably the Bronze, Reed and Breaker, but who knows what's going to happen on that other side at that point. And that would probably be, as a personal issue, a bigger draw than whatever else they might want to do.
Well, that was WWE Raw, the night after, or the 2 nights after, I guess I should say, the John Cena last match. And Jim, we shall return with listener questions right after this short commercial timeout. All right, Jim, you know what that means? It can only mean one thing. It's time for questions. And
questions.
Hopefully answers, but I guess we'll see about that.
Well, now don't be greedy.
Well, we'll see how greedy the listeners are. Of course, these are listener questions submitted via email to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com, as well as through our Facebook, the official Jim Cornette, the official Cult of Cornette, that's what it is, Facebook group. We have a monthly thread that goes up there for people to submit questions, so we're going to go back and forth a little bit. Jim, this question was sent via the Cult of Cornette Facebook group by Michael Cotter.
Welcome back. Your dreams were your ticket out. Welcome back.
Were you a fan of Welcome Back, Cotter?
Ooh. Can I answer that?
You can, yes, Corny Horseshack, yes.
Corn Shack.
Corn Shack.
It's Corn Shack. Ooh. Mr. Last.
Arnold Corn
Yes, that's where I first formed my first young teenage opinion of New Yorkers, was from Welcome Back, Cotter, and the train and everything. I'm like, what the fuck's going on up there?
All right, and those are your thoughts. Just basically what you saw when John Sebastian was singing. Those are your thoughts.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on Taxi, or more appropriately, the 59th Street Bridge?
Well, it's feeling groovy.
Well, let's get to Mr. Cotter's question here. There have been rumors about Ricky and Robert not getting along. With all of Jim's interactions with the Rock and Roll Express, did he ever see any arguments or dissension between them?
Oh, good Lord. Brian, do you know a couple that's been married for 40 years that have never had an argument?
No.
I'm waiting. So. Okay. No, yeah. They've had arguments in the past, or fucking picked at each other or whatever, or back and forth, but they've been a tag team. Well, and I think they still actually, is Robert still wrestling once in a while? I don't know, but I know that when I inducted them in the Hall of Fame, they'd been a tag team for 34 years, and they wrestled matches for several years after that. So yes, I mean, I haven't actually witnessed them yelling at each other or anything like that, but they've been in a snit a time or two in 40 fucking years, but I'm pretty sure everything's fine.
I can make a guess about one of them, because at Fan Week one year, it was probably 95 when Ricky fell out with Smoky Mountain for a brief period of time.
Well, that was a period.
Either he fell out with Smoky Mountain or Andrea fell out of the car. I forget exactly what happened.
Well, actually, no, that's the problem. Andrea got knocked out of the car by Tracy's girlfriend, and that whole thing occurred.
But I remember talking to Robert one time at the at the merch table because that's where you could talk to all the baby faces at the shows. They were all there. We were the smart fans. So, some guys actually would talk to you. And, this was, let's see, 7 years later or so. And he was still like, yeah, when Ricky screwed us up in 1988 and we walked out of the NWA, he blamed that all on Ricky walking out in, I guess, January 88.
Yeah, well, Ricky was probably the driving force behind that decision. But, again, that you were talking to him in 1995 and they were still teaming 25 years later. So if Bobby Fulton and Tommy Rogers, I don't know whether it was 1984 or 1985, one of the first years that they were a team as the Fantastics, they got in an actual goddamn fist fight in a parking lot of a La Quinta somewhere for some reason.
Oh, wow.
And I wish Bobby was sitting here right now so he could tell me the story, but that's all I remember. But shit happens. But at the same time, then if you like a guy originally and then you have a problem or a fight or whatever, you're more predisposed to make up and get back together and work together and whatever. Whereas if you didn't like somebody to begin with, then that's generally a good reason to fuck that guy and don't deal with him anymore.
Were there any tag teams that had good runs that didn't get along? Like good long runs, not like brief periods of time or something like the Tolan's where all of a sudden they just get into a giant fight in front of everyone in the back. But like a tag team we think of like, oh, that's a great team. Oh, they hated each other.
God, I'm trying to, it would have been awful tough, especially in the territory days, to do that for long because you had to be around somebody so much. And there were many different people that coexisted as tag teams. You couldn't find two more different people than Ray Stevens and Nick Bockwinkel, but they both loved each other. But I can't think of a long-running successful tag team that hated each other the whole time. Even like Steamboat and Youngblood. Steamboat didn't hate Youngblood.
Yeah, see, I think some of that's overstated.
Yeah, it was just, he didn't dislike him at all. He wished he was not Steamboat was clean as a whistle, and Youngblood was, as obviously, because he died at the age of 30, he was way off in the other direction.
Someone recently sent over a photo, and now I can't remember where it was, if it was on Twitter, if it was in the group, or if it was in an email, but I just saw this photo recently, and the person said, Jay Youngblood was married into my family. I want to say like his wife was our cousin or something like that.
Oh, I saw that because you sent me that picture too.
Yeah, and at Thanksgiving one year, there was Ricky Steamboat. He had nowhere else to go.
Yeah.
He was before he was married, I guess, and he came with Jay Youngblood to Thanksgiving. And I'm like, well, for all those stories that they couldn't stand each other, or specifically, Steamboat couldn't stand being around Youngblood, this kind of says that it wasn't always the case. I mean, here they were a year and a half before they split up, having Thanksgiving together.
Well, and see, that's the thing is that, again, you talk about long-running tag teams, the Fargos. Jackie and Don were on the outs for a while, but then they got back together, and then they were on the outs for a while again. But, they hadn't seen each other when they went to the Charlotte Fan Fest that year in God, did they say 25 years at that point? But then they caught up because they liked each other. Then they fell out. Then they got back together because they could make money because they were a big team. And then they just weren't around each other and went separate ways. But then the nostalgia factor kicked in when they were old and could visit again. So,
were you there for that in Charlotte when they got back together?
Oh, God, yes. I've got pictures in between them, and I'm the one that inducted them into the Hall of whatever the fuck it was called at that point. And I said about Don Fargo, I said, there's an old saying that after nuclear war, the only thing left on Earth living will be Keith Richards and cockroaches. Well, Don Fargo's in the room, and he will be eating the cockroaches, and Keith Richards will be Mrs. Fargo. It was great to see, but yeah, and bad thing is, I think that was like 2 years after Roughhouse had passed away, so we could have had all three of them, but anyway, but yes, but great tag teams that were long running and just couldn't stand each other. I can't.
Ray Gunkel and Buddy Fuller.
There you go. But how long did they run? And it was only in Georgia.
That's the thing. How long were they a team? The fact was that eventually they had to team because that's what the fans wanted and that's what would draw, and they hated each other.
Yeah.
But I don't know how long they hated each other and how long they actually, I guess from 64 on, right? 65 on.
Yeah, but it wasn't like they were a tag team in and out. It wasn't like that was their whole deal. They didn't run as a team for 7 years or whatever it was.
Jim, on the topic of the Rock and Roll Express, where do you stand on an official spelling? Do you think you need the letter N? Do you think it should be just a mark for an N? Do you think you need to write out rock and roll? What are your thoughts on an official spelling?
What is that? Is that the ampersand? Is that what that's called?
Something like that.
Did I just reveal more of my incredible knowledge about the English language? Let me just look this up for a second. Because that's the symbol. If that's a symbol, that's what you need. Because it's rock and roll. And like, hold on here. Animalcule? What is animalcule? Oh, it's a microscopic animal organism.
Now everyone's learning.
See, and we've got to learn, Brian. You keep learning. Okay, amphibian, amphetamine, ampersand. The character which represents the word and that's what it is. So you need the ampersand.
And they needed the amphetamines. Let's get back to the Rock and Roll Express. What are your thoughts on an official way to spell? Do you use the ampersand or do you write the letter N?
Yeah, I just said that. The ampersand.
Okay. I see it a lot with the letter N to the point where I started using it a little bit because I thought that's the official spelling.
Well, actually, that was in a lot of the 50s rock and roll concert posters. They would do that because it was a brand new thing and the oldsters didn't really know what was going on there. But I think how does the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame do it? Google that. See, how do they handle this fucking burning controversy?
The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, they use the ampersand.
Well, there you go. If you can't agree with Jim Cornette and the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, who can you agree with? I rest my case.
They also don't have Paul Revere and the Raiders or the Monkees or plenty of other bands that belong in there. So who gives a fuck?
Well, but they can spell the goddamn fucking genre.
I'm not going with the idea they are the official arbiters of what is or isn't rock and roll. Fuck Jan Wenner.
Well, when you fuck Jan Wenner, you're fucking a lot of people who have put their hard work and sweat and tears into that wonderful structure in Cleveland that means so much to so many people.
See, I thought you were going to say when you fuck Jan Wenner, you get on the cover of Rolling Stone, but what you said.
Well, but not anymore. How old is he now?
Well, he doesn't
certainly to God, he can't be.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's right. They changed owners and now it's the shits.
Someone wrote a biography of him several years back, and it's pretty good. I actually never finished it, but the parts I read were pretty good. It seemed rather honest, and it seemed like it, without trying to take sides or hit or anything, presented the good and the bad. That's what it seemed like to me. Apparently he hated it, even though I think he did interviews for it or whatever. So then he put out his own biography, and it was the biggest pile of shit anyone ever read. It was just the biggest head up his own ass pile of shit ever. But that's the Rock and Roll Express, ladies and gentlemen. Let's get another question. Let me close this. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame's still open.
Oh, it's still open at this hour?
Jim, we've received a few questions about CM Punk's run. This one seems pretty thorough. Let me ask you this. This was sent to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com from Mark in Manchester, UK. Yesterday, as he sent this in, which was a little over a week ago, December 8th, marked CM Punk's 744th day in WWE during his current and second stint with the company. This meant he officially surpassed his 743 days during his AEW tenure. How would you compare each tenure with the company's, and which is most successful? Putting aside fallouts and suspensions, in the case of AEW, he had memorable moments and was undoubtedly their biggest attraction. Compared to his current WWE tenure, where he has had a couple of great feuds, particularly with Drew McIntyre, and continues to be one of their biggest attractions, headlining some of their biggest shows. Hope you have a great Christmas.
It passed while you were reading that fucking question. Could we boil this down to which run was better, Punk in AEW or Punk in WWE? That's the question, right?
I guess if we're boiling it down, it's comparing the two runs again. It's kind of crazy to see that he's now been back longer than he was in AEW. That I hadn't thought of it that way. That's crazy.
Well, that's because time passed so much more slowly when we were having to watch the rest of that shit over there. But no, there's no comparison. I mean, yes, Punk had good matches in AEW with MJF and did the big house on his comeback in Chicago, which was an incredibly great television moment, and did, well, I forget how many pay-per-views, but what is it, their first 3 pay-per-views where they did over $1 million gate and some other, he obviously had some metrics of success there. But as we've talked about with a lot of people in AEW, he tried, but he didn't have long-running rivalries or programs with anybody. They'd build up a match and he'd have it. But they don't have long-running rivalries and programs in AEW because nobody can keep track of even who the fuck's on whose side. And they come and go like the wind. In WWE, he had the thing with Drew, which was, again, personal issues draw money. I can't say that enough anymore. And that was a personal issue, and it was hot. And then he had the deal with AJ Lee coming back for the mixed tag with Seth and Becky. And that carried that show. He's the world champion. He actually, again, there was a period of time when he first came back where, I can't really think of any otherwise than has he had an injury. When, since he's been back in WWE, was he not highly figured in at the top of the fucking cards? I don't have all my notes in front of me from the last 2 years.
Listen, he returned. There was a big moment, Survivor Series, big surprise moment. I think it was Survivor Series. It was War Games, I think. But he returned, big moment. Him and Drew. Him and Seth Rollins. I mean, you kind of went right to the AJ Lee thing.
Yeah.
That's kind of in the midst of their feud.
Yeah, well, and also him and Seth, but I just loved the mixed tag because it took me back. But
the stuff with him and Heyman. It's easy to overlook that, but that's some pretty good stuff too.
And plus, not that it's even a fair comparison, but the money generated by him during his WWE run dwarfs, anything that he generated in AEW because it's completely different financial structure and completely different atmosphere. And so I would imagine that his merchandise, since he's been back in the WWE, was more profitable than all the pay-per-views he was on in AEW put together. But I know people are thinking, I don't look at a comparison just based on, did he have a good match or two? Yes, he had those milestones that did business in AEW, and that was proof that he was having a good run. But in WWE, the platform's so much bigger, the money scale is so much larger, and he's got so many more guys to work with, and they don't fuck shit up nearly as badly or as often because I know they still do, but there's multiple people that the shit has to go through in the WWE instead of just Tony blurting shit out and Punk trying to find people to work with over there that aren't so indie-minded like the Pages of the world that they get in their own way. So he's had a tremendous roster to work with here and a great promotional machine behind it.
See, the best of AEW, and there were good moments, even that Eddie Kingston promo back and forth. And it didn't lead to a feud or anything, but it was him and MJF. Like, those were the two guys that kind of needed each other at that time. And it worked. Maybe the best feud in AEW history. Best matches. Best singles matches.
Yeah.
In some cases in AEW history. It was, now that you say it like that, a problem, because who else is he going to work with there? If he was there now, if Punk hadn't left or been fired or whatever happened, who would he be working with right now?
An Undertaker, because he would have committed suicide.
Seriously, who would he be working with? The Death Riders?
Nothing.
No. Well, I guess you're saying his current WWE run is better then.
Yes. I mean, can you... maybe, let's say if he was there, would he want to try to just move Kyle Felcher in the house with him and just try to teach the fucking kid something? Because he got all the other tools, but he's the same as the rest of them. I don't know anybody that's, that's business-minded enough to understand how to do a program with CM Punk over there right now.
Jim, our next question was sent via the Cult of Cornette Facebook group by Joe Ed Holt.
Well, now pick one. Is it Joe or is it Ed?
I look at Edge and Moxley and others who left the WWE for AEW and losing the superstar luster they previously had. It got me wondering, is it possible, through production, to take a subpar wrestler and turn them into superstars?
Now, hold on. I was going in a completely different direction. Apparently, I missed the curve. Would you repeat that?
I will. And I picked it, so here we go. I look at Edge and Moxley and others who left the WWE for AEW and losing the superstar luster they previously had. It got me wondering, is it possible, through production, to take a subpar wrestler and turn them into superstars?
Oh, okay, I'm getting a little bit more of it now. But and here's the thing: when he mentioned Edge, the reason why I got distracted for a second and missed that hairpin turn, I just realized Edge. The last we saw of legendary babyface Edge was the heels beat his wife up, and he, instead of getting even, he said, "Oh fuck it, I got to go home," and that's the last time we've seen him. Correct?
That is correct. FTR did a big angle where they beat up Beth Phoenix, and then she was gone, and then Edge announced he couldn't be there anymore. He was gone, and then FTR just did other things.
Do you think Beth is mad? Do you think every time Edge comes home in the house, she's like, "Did you kick those guys' asses yet? What the fuck? They beat me up 6 months ago." Well, honey, I'm going to do it, but I had to get the car washed. And then I'm gonna drive right, because they're only across town. I'll just drive right over there and say, "Oh, but shit, I got to pick the kids up at school, or elsewise I'd drive right over there and kick their asses because they just live on the other side of town." Say, you think your brother will go with me? What time's your brother get off of work? What the fuck were they? Isn't Edge again deader than Kelsey's nuts? If when he comes back as a babyface that he didn't bother to get even for his wife being beaten up?
I don't know if that'll be the thing that would make me say he's deader than Kelsey's nuts. I feel like a lot of his return to wrestling, since he returned to the WWE and had that match with Orton at WrestleMania, has been a big miss and has kind of taken down his luster when you think about what he was and what he is now and what he's involved with. I don't think it's going to matter. I mean, when they bring him back, it's going to be ridiculous if they start going back to this feud. When was that? It was over the summer, wasn't it? When did that happen?
I think it was warm weather.
Yeah, I mean, so it happened a while ago. So whenever
the guys in the match didn't even have shirts on, so it must have been fairly warm.
Yeah, so I don't know if people are going to really be like super gung-ho for Edge and Christian versus FTR now as they would have been if an angry husband was on the loose months ago.
You think they've waited till the fucking heat cooled off? But nevertheless, this fucking moron's question.
This Cult of Cornette fan member here, very nice man, I'm sure.
Then don't ask stupid questions, because Edge wasn't a subpar wrestler that had a superstar aura only because he was on the WWE, but he was, unfortunately, it was enhanced in his later years by being on WWE television. And he got no support when he crossed over the bridge there and found a new, land to play in. He ain't got a lot of help, and it's mostly the booking and, as we just made fun of, what's gone on there. But I mean, again, I never saw Moxley as Dean Ambrose. We weren't watching the show then, thankfully. And I've never heard that he was remarkably better then and suddenly is just the shits he is now. He looked even goofier with hair, possibly, than he does as the balding plumber. He looked like just some indie fucking guy when I see pictures of Dean Ambrose. So,
thank you.
The question is, could they take a subpar wrestler and with production get him over? I would say that if Dean Ambrose was over in WWE, that's exactly what they did. But was Dean Ambrose important in the overall scheme of things in WWE? I don't see the Dean Ambrose fan club picketing any of the buildings. We're not seeing Dean Ambrose, fucking DVDs, greatest hits. What the fuck, Brian? Do you have any idea whether anybody gave a shit about him then or not up there?
They definitely gave a shit when he was in the Shield because the Shield were a big deal.
Well, standing in between Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns. I'm talking about just little Pismo over there in the corner by himself. Did the people care?
He was over for a brief bit because he was getting a push. He was the lunatic fringe, and he would do his silly moves and, make his funny little walk and do all of his things. But he paled in comparison. There were certain people wanting to tell you he was the guy that was going to be the breakout star of the Shield. There were people comparing him to Terry Funk.
I say Uncle Dave is one of them people, isn't he?
Yeah, it's the people that have talked to John Moxley and like John Moxley is who it is.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, Roman Reigns, think today about what his legacy is, and Seth Rollins, who's one of their main event guys and has been and will be in between injuries going forward.
And then their other bag carrier from former days sticks chopsticks in his head. So yeah, you can obviously, with good production, accentuate a guy's strengths and eliminate his weaknesses, and the music videos and the highlight compilations and good booking, if that all goes into the loose catch-all of production, then yes, obviously you can make everybody look better than they might be if they're on some cable access program, and that's the difference. But ultimately, there has to be some level of talent for you to work with, and so it's not really just trying to take any schlub and make him a star, but it's trying to take a guy with a lot of tools and a lot of potential, and as I said, accentuate strengths, eliminate the weaknesses, and focus on how to present him, that type of production. But that's not just combined to wrestling, that's any showbiz, music, movies, whatever the case.
Hey, Vince McMahon and the Ultimate Warrior. Vince knew what he had. They hit a lot of it with music, with running to the ring, with shaking the ropes, with quick matches, especially if it's a squash match. In and out, quick, with lots of music and running around. That was hiding something. And even Heyman, 911, Big Al, wasn't much of a wrestler. He had a look and he had a size, but, he wasn't going to take a snapmare. It was like, that wasn't his thing.
Yeah.
Heyman knew what he had. He had him run out there, choke slam people, got the choke slam super over, and then get him out of there. So, those are examples, I guess you could say, of hiding subpar talent with wrestling production.
Well, and that is obviously as old as the hills in wrestling is, again, push a guy and don't let it get old. But then all of the things that you just mentioned, you can't have a guy that's a top guy that's still lasting, that stands the test of time. Ultimate Warrior had his window, and then that window closed. And, the other, it goes back to Jack Pfeffer and the Freaks and Martin the Blimp Levy and the Angels and all that stuff. They draw, but it doesn't stand the test of time. So production only goes so far.
Jim, our next question was sent via the Cult of Cornette Facebook group by Isaias Basurco Vidarde.
Oh, come on now.
We have an international audience. Hello, Isaias.
The Berserker.
When did you know John Cena was going to be a superstar?
When he came to OVW and I met him.
I mean, there must be plenty of people you've had come in there with a great physique or a great look or even a great rap. And you thought, one thing, when it comes to, I know this guy's a superstar, was it that quick?
Yeah, because, and again, the great rap, he didn't rap at all. The great rap
I just
might have turned
promo.
me off.
I
know what you're saying. And we're going to rap with each other, babe. The Wolfman Jack kind of rap. You know what I'm saying. No, here's the thing. John came in. I look at the physique. I look at his conditioning. I see him work out a few times in the ring. I hear him cut a promo because he was a heel in OVW, the prototype, and his heel promos were already good. He just never ever did them again. But also, John, when he got here, he had already found, we said, oh, we'll help you get a place to stay. No, I've already found that. He automatically showed he was self-sufficient. He was mature. He was on time. He was early. And he didn't flake off and, he stayed late. And I mean, was it 6 months after he was here? Maybe not. Danny Davis was letting him drive the ring truck. He was a mature adult with all the tools and an incredible work ethic. So I thought originally, because he was a heel then and because his promos were so good and he already had the body language down of a heel, that he would be potentially one of the top heels going into the system. I didn't know they were going to change it around and make him a babyface, and I thought his work, honestly, in the ring, as good as he was in 2001, I thought his work was going to continue to, improve at that rate. And I'll be the first one to say John is not goddamn, Nick Bockwinkel in the ring when it comes to an overall worker. He does what he does and what he got over. But otherwise than that, he had everything already. He just needed experience. I mean, he wanted to learn. He read, he studied, he asked things. He, whatever the work ethic is on a scale of 1 to 100, he was 110. So I picked him, and I thought the same thing about Batista because of his look rather than any other ability he had. And I was kind of wrong at start about Randy Orton because he was so not committed and so not trying hard and so not working on his body that even though he had the natural ability and had it in his genes and everything, I didn't think he was going to make it. But then after, the first 9 months or so, and we busted him a couple of times when the time he said on tape, is that he didn't know it was being recorded. I hate wrestling. I only come to get my $750 a week or whatever it was. But then he started working on his body and applying himself, and he got his head out of his ass, and then you could tell. But Brock, I figured that the only caveat I had with Brock was if he ever started really trying hard and acted like he wanted to do it. And he did start trying hard when they brought him up to the main roster, but he never really acted like he wanted to do it until, about 5, 6, 7 years ago. But anyway, you see things if you have seen a lot of people, then you see what stands out about them versus what stands out about other people or doesn't stand out. Does that make sense?
It does. In terms of what stood out, obviously Cena's a very bright guy. And you brought up Lesnar and Batista and Orton. Each one of them is very different than the other. And you had so many other students come in and, come in. I was about to say come in and out. Come in while you were there in OVW. In terms of talking to Cena, when did he first impress you? Was it just, like you said, he got his own apartment, he's self-sufficient? Or were there things that you saw or just noticed in conversation with him that were different than the way other people thought about things or talked about things?
Well, yes, he was a smart guy, but also a witty guy. And, he was the perfect guy to have in the locker room because he liked to laugh and joke around, but he wasn't going to be laughing and joking instead of fucking applying themselves to what they were doing. And again, especially for the field here, the roster that I had at the time, he was one of the top percentile in terms of athletic appearance and because of his bodybuilding background. But he also, just had already the basic abilities in the ring that you needed to be able to coach a guy without having to tell him how to tie his shoes first. He just got it. And he sucked up information, like all the memos and the notes and the essays and the books and everything I would give him to read. And there was a video that somebody had on the internet a couple of weeks ago that I guess they put out some type of retrospective on him, where when they interviewed him in his first couple of years on the main roster, when he had become a star, but he pulled his plastic storage drawers out and still had all the VHS tapes that we had given him in OVW because I recognized the labels and some of Danny Davis's handwriting. This great tag team and this great wrestler and best of this and that and the other thing. He watched all that shit.
All right, Jim, our next question. I will read in the name of the holidays. Spreading joy. This person has sent in this question probably 20 times in the last year, but you're going to finally get it on.
Well, there you go.
This was sent to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com from Big Andy in Louisville, Kentucky.
Now, wait a minute. I knew Big Andy, and he was from New Jersey. Big Andy Varga. You remember him?
I do. I used to buy stuff from him, not as the stuff that you got before the convention opened, but yes, I do know.
Yeah, that's how you were only about 7 years old when I bought all of the stuff from Andy Varga. What does Big Andy here in Louisville want to know?
Jim, who was the fartinest motherfucker you ever had to be in the locker room with? This guy sent this question nonstop all year. You finally get it on. Who was the fartinest motherfucker you ever had to be in the locker room with?
Well, see, I don't know. It depends because it depends. A lot of the bodybuilders, those protein shakes would, just make you just stinky fart. But at the same time, some of the guys with, a lesser, shall we say, strict diet who are just eating shit all over the place, they might be able to bust one out every now and then that would, send everybody running from the room. But I don't know if I can finger a particular person as being I'm kind of proud of what I've done in the past. Because when we went to Louisiana, Dennis Condrey had bought that van from Stan Lane, a Ford Econoline van with the side door that slides open and everything, right? And it's got the kind of okay padding on the back where you can get a little rest, but not like a whole customized thing. But one time we were on a trip somewhere and I had eaten, I think the previous 3 meals that I'd had were all from gas stations because we're always in a fucking car, right? And I'd stopped and got some KFC nuggets and gravy on top of like the previous night's gas station smoked sausage with barbecue sauce from the place in Little Rock, whatever. And as we pulled up to the gas pump, I let out, and You know, the ones that are hot, Brian, the ones that are the highest temperature are the ones that are going to be not only the quietest, but the stinkiest. Because think about this. When you fart and makes a loud noise, it's not hot, it's cold. But if you fart and it just comes out like that, it's noxious gas and it's hot. It's almost flammable. We pull up to the pumps. I let that out. What are you saying?
Just say that it's flammable. The next line is we pulled up to the pumps.
But that's where we were. We pull up to the pumps, and right when I let that thing, everybody smelled it at the same time. And Dennis was driving and jumped out of his door, and Bobby was in the front seat and jumped out of his door. And Buddy Landell and Carl Fergie were next to the side sliding door, and they whipped it open and they jumped out all at the same time. And they were all going, "Oh, God, jeez." And we scared this poor old woman next to us to death. All of a sudden, this black van pulls up, and she's sitting there quietly in her car, and these bleach blonde 250-pound muscleheads jump out of every door all at the same time, screaming, "Oh, God, Jesus Christ." And she almost pulled the fucking thing out of the tank while the gas was still going. And she was, and they said, "Oh, we're sorry, ma'am. We're sorry, ma'am." He farted.
I didn't answer the question. Who was the fartness motherfucker in the locker room?
Probably me.
In the locker room?
Everywhere. Think about the shit I used to eat back then. Now that I'm thinking about it, I made Bubba choke one time, and Bobby had a weak stomach anyway. So maybe it was me.
What a diplomatic answer I did not expect. But there he is, Big Andy, the fartness motherfucker in wrestling, Jim Cornette. What a shock. What a shocking turn we have here.
But now, hey, in for the sake of, in honor again of Rob Reiner, we've got to go back to the Andre story, because I don't know if he was the fartness motherfucker of all time, but when he farted, people noticed it. And that's what sometimes he would sit on guys he didn't like and fart on them or whatever. But Rob Reiner said on a set of The Princess Bride one day, they're all there and doing whatever they're doing on the movie, and Andre let out a 17-second long fart. Think about the count to 17, Brian. I can't even go that long. And they all looked at him. And then Rob Reiner said, "You okay, Andre?" He said, "I am now, boss."
Well, there it is.
So he had the best ones.
Have you seen The Princess Bride?
Yes, a long time ago. It's not like that I, have studied it and gone back to it and made notes on it and everything. But at the same time, marriage is a very noble institution. I can't remember the rest of it. I just like the marriage.
All right, Jim, let's get some more questions here. This one was sent via the Cult of Cornette Facebook group by Frederick Roberts. How was the NWA Jr. Heavyweight Championship booked back when it meant something? And when did the NWA stop giving a damn about it? Guys like Danny Hodge, Vern Gagne, and Baron Leone were top guys in those days. By the time of my fandom, we had Denny Brown and Lasertron.
Was that the end of the question?
Yes, it was.
Well, the answer is kind of what he said. The NWA World Junior Heavyweight title was never really nationally as a draw on par with the World Heavyweight title, but it was more recognized and more well used in, what would you say, Brian, the 40s, 50s, 60s, definitely.
Into the 70s. I would say into the 70s.
Well, that's where I was gonna say is, what was Hodge's car wreck in 72 or 73? Because I can't remember. That was the beginning of the end. But nevertheless, besides the fact that a lot of guys were smaller back in those days, because the average population was smaller, so it somewhat made sense. They had a world junior heavyweight champion that worked, that could, same thing as the world heavyweight champion, that could travel around and work with different smaller guys in the territories. And they concentrated them on like the territories where smaller weight wrestling was in fashion. The Tennessee territory was a light heavyweight territory, as they used to call it back in the 40s. Smaller guys, quicker action, but this was, the smaller guys were 180, 190, 200, 210. But that was a time almost 100 years ago when the heavyweights were 220, 230, 240, except for the freaks. And then Leroy McGuirk's territory, because McGuirk was a junior heavyweight wrestler. And I guess by the time that Danny Hodge came along, that's when it really was used the most that the junior heavyweight title was ever used in the actual territories, the official territories that had formed in the mid-50s with the rise of studio wrestling and local TV and regional syndication, because Danny Hodge had made so many headlines. He was legitimately the best wrestler in the United States. He was on the cover of Sports Illustrated. He went to the Olympics. He dominated the NCAA. He was a phenomenon and everybody knew who he was. But I think he probably wrestled at amateur, maybe not even at 190. But by the same token, they had to somewhat bow to realism in that they can't bring Danny Hodge into the wrestling business and have him losing preliminary matches. Because then that would be, he's completely ridiculous, since he was completely dominant in school and college and the Olympics. So it made sense. And because he was a Oklahoma product and a product or a project of Leroy McGuirk's, the Oklahoma promoter, who had all the ends to get anybody the NWA Junior heavyweight title, it made perfect sense. And from then on, from 60, when he first won it, probably 60, 61, to when he had the car wreck in 72 or 73, the only time he would lose it is to set up a return match where he'd win it back. And he was the biggest draw and biggest babyface in Oklahoma and Missouri and all of McGuirk's territory down into Louisiana. But at the same time, he could travel around the country and defend it because everybody knew who he was. Then after Hodge, it's like in modern times, all the guys have gotten bigger. The emphasis on heavyweight title. The Southern heavyweight title in Memphis until 1975 was the Southern junior heavyweight title. But then somebody looked and realized that Jerry Lawler was working with the Mongolian Stomper for the belt, and what the fuck sense does this make? So I think that at that point, the NWA didn't care. Ken Mantell, I don't know if Ken Mantell's family would have paid to see Ken Mantell wrestle. And they just kind of put it on guys that could be on the card. And then the only reason it showed up on Denny Brown or even being used really on Crockett's TV is because Dusty had a soft spot for Denny Brown because he was an old Florida guy. And, well, he'll get a little Denny, may give him the junior heavyweight champion.
There used to be that great trivia question. Who are the only two brothers to hold the NWA world title in two different weight divisions?
Who would that be?
Jack and Jerry Briscoe.
In two different weight.
Jerry Briscoe was world junior heavyweight champion.
Okay, I see. I thought both of them had to. I'm sorry. I thought both brothers had to have won both weight divisions, and that threw me off because it's almost the end of the program. But yet that is, because the Funks were the only brothers to hold the NWA world title, but the Briscoes were the only brothers to hold both the world title and the junior heavyweight title, or heavyweight title and junior heavyweight title.
Jim, our next question sent via the Cult of Cornette Facebook group was sent by Mark J. Ricchetti Jr.
But you doesn't gotta call him Mark J.
Dumb question, probably. But I was just rewatching the episode of Raw where Austin saves Stephanie from being sacrificed on The Undertaker's symbol. I had completely forgotten that Jim was on commentary that night.
As a matter of fact, so have I.
Did he and JR know that they were calling something that will be replayed thousands of times in the future, or was it just another goofy Russo-era skit?
It was just another goofy Russo-era skit. Because if I'd have known that it was going to be replayed thousands of times over, A, I would have remembered I was there, because I remember it happening, but I didn't remember we were on commentary. And B, I might have called in sick that day, just so that I wouldn't be a part of it. But yeah, I mean, and at that point, I wasn't doing commentary regularly on the cable programs. I was doing syndication, voiceovers, whatever. But I did some of those shows during that era when, for various reasons, one of the other guys was indisposed. And it was just getting really fucking silly is what it's so yeah, when they had Stephanie tied to that fucking goofy cross gimmick that they were trying to make Undertaker and his group, the Satanistic Forces and all of that other caca, I kind of tuned that out.
All right, so no memories of that. Thank you for your question.
Thank you for reminding me that I was someplace I didn't want to be.
This next question was sent via the Cult of Cornette Facebook group by Darren Chapello. What did Jim do when he got a day off from being on the road? It seems like a day wouldn't be long enough to relax when the rest of the time you were going from city to city.
Well, it depends on the particular time frame. Because, like, if I had plenty of days off from the road, Smoky Mountain Wrestling, we were only running 3 or 4 days a week, plus the WWF dates, but I was still booking or doing business or whatever. And OVW, same thing. There was WWF. I wasn't on the road regularly, but we either had to go to the goddamn office or do something, but there was more time off there. Generally, it was always stay home. And just not goddamn leave the house, because why would you want to? But when I was early on, either in Louisiana or Dallas, or the early days of Crockett, especially if I was not married and or had a significant other in the house at the time, my favorite thing in Louisiana, I had an apartment with a KFC on the corner. And so I would actually, instead of eating a fast food meal in the car, I would just go right up to the corner and get me about 30 or 40 of those fucking nuggets that they used to have, the good ones, and a bunch of mashed potatoes and a bunch of gravy. And I would sit at home and watch tapes of wrestling from around the various territories and eat my goddamn chicken nuggets. And I would do the same thing in Dallas, except instead of the KFC, it was the PTA. Have you ever had the PTA, Brian?
What's PTA?
Pizza Transit Authority. That was the place that delivered pizza. I lived in Irving, Texas, and they left a flyer. And I was in that apartment for 5 months, and I guarantee you I had PTA pizzas 4 nights a week. Bobby Eaton came in and picked me up one time. He said, Corny, I like your new carpet, because I had empty pizza boxes spread out all over the fucking floor. But that's why I would sit there and I would eat my pizza and I would watch wrestling tapes of territories around on my day off, because that way I'd be able to catch up. And, you know, it just depended on what restaurant of my favorites that I was closest to. That was my thing. In Atlanta, when I'd get back from Columbus, Georgia on Saturday night, by midnight, and had Sunday off, boom, in goes the 8-hour block of Pedicino's wrestling shows and a goddamn giant Domino's and a huge thing of fucking chicken fingers. Can you see why I sometimes had a problem with my weight?
And your gas, from what we talked
And
about
my
earlier.
gas.
That's right. When you were in Dallas, did you ever have Pizza Inn?
I always had pizza. Well, sometimes I had pizza out.
Famed
But
from
sometimes
they have the famous Von Erich commercials for them, so I thought maybe that would be
No,
something you had.
I was never a Pizza Inn patron. Because they, for one thing, they weren't near me, and for the other thing, I don't trust the Von Erichs to tell me about food.
It's such a weird commercial. I mean, again, from someone who grew up in New York eating pizza in New York, you see this is like, get your pizzas. Every pizza comes with free biscuits. It's like, wait, what? That just doesn't seem like it goes together.
Well, that's a Texas thing. They don't even do that down here.
All right. Well, that is, Jim, our final question here today. And with that, the drive-thru is closed. Where's this thing?
Bling.
That pick up Brian's Kalimba. The drive-thru is closed. Go through the archives, patreon.com/Cornette. $5 a month gets you access to the archive going back to 2013. Patreon.com/Cornette. The official Jim Cornette YouTube channel. Go and subscribe today. Full episodes, clips of the episodes, omnibus collection, that George Livinitis artwork that becomes more popular by the day. The official Jim Cornette YouTube channel. Cornette's Collectibles at JimCornette.com. What are we saying, Jim?
Well, we're saying Merry Christmas, but you ain't going to get any shit by Christmas, but you might get it by New Year's if you order. Well, actually, you might have hit that too. But you'll get it sometime, JimCornette.com.
A glowing endorsement, JimCornette.com.
I'm tired. I'm just tired of signing shit. I've been telling you for 2 months to order this shit. We've got everything out we can get out. Just happy Christmas, everybody.
Of course, listen to the wrestling news each and every day wherever you find your favorite podcast. No clickbait, no paywall, just the wrestling news. And the drive-thru is brought to you by the law office of Stephen P. New, 877-50-STEVE. Get even with Stephen, newlawoffice.com. But until the experience in a few days and next week back here on the drive-thru for Jim Cornette, I'm the great Brian Last. Tally-ho!